Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Got Betrayed and Become the Crimson Dragon God of Arcadia Season 2 Part 4. Before we start, please go support Au.RageRevan and Darkdecade97 for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. S2 Chapter 9. Darkened hellscape in Draken's world, Arcadia, 9:30 p.m. The man was lying on the ground as someone was pushing him to wake him up. As he groaned and woke up, this was Issei as Juniper was waking him up, as she spoke with concern. "Ice, wake up." Issei's eyes started to open up. At first his vision was blurry. As he looked to see Juniper waking him up, she soon sighed in relief and spoke, "Thank you are alright." "Why yeah." Issei spoke weakly as he got up and spoke while looking around. "You know where are we?" "Truth be told, I am just as clueless as you are. This world, this place seems familiar, yet I am unable to deduce where I am." Issei nodded. There was nothing but trees and greenery where they were. He soon spoke, "There is nothing we can do, we got to get a move on." You are right." Juniper spoke, as the couple started to head out of the forestry, only to be met with a shocking discovery. There was a statue of Issei's balance breaker and Vlad Ark, right next to each other. Issei and Juniper became horrified as she looked at Issei's expression. He had a look of terror and horror as she asked, "Ice, isn't that your balance breaker?" "Why yeah it is." Issei spoke as he continued, "What is even going on here? Maybe it could be someone else that is taking charge. Something horrible must have happened here." Juniper also seemed to nod as she spoke, "I think so too, and this is Arcadia, that is for sure. Let's go to the Ark mansion and see what is going on, maybe we can find our answers there." Juniper spoke in an assured tone. She also was horrified at what is going on. This was a statue of Issei's balance breaker. She knew that Issei is not evil, otherwise, he could have easily joined Nicholas when he was given the chance. After Nicholas's betrayal, it was hard to manipulate and toy with Juniper, due to sensing deception much quicker and dealing with them accordingly. Even if she was with Issei, she would still have the scars of betrayal in her heart, and with Issei also being betrayed his whole life, and literally seeing his whole life several times, there was an even lower chance he would turn on her. "Ice, it's okay, we will get our answers there." Juniper spoke, seeing his horrified look. She knew that he was even more shocked and horrified than she was. She knew that he was completely stunned at what he was witnessing. She put his hand on Issei, making him flinch. "Why yeah. Let's head to the Ark mansion and get our answers." Issei looked at her and nodded, "Right." Issei and Juniper left and headed to where the Ark mansion was supposed to be, hoping that everything was going to be alright. Draken's mansion, 10 p.m. Inside the technologically advanced mansion of Lord Draken, that was specifically created by the man himself, using his powers and army, an argument was going on inside the mansion. Draken was looking down on a soldier as he spoke, "You spared some rebel spies that belonged to Arcadia. You disobeyed a direct order from me and General Taurus." The soldier captain responded, "I can't murder several unarmed soldiers that are fighting for a just cause. I won't do it." Draken clenched the armrest as he angrily demanded, "I won't stand for this level of insubordination and disrespect." Draken snapped his fingers as the soldier screamed in pain. It was a white sentinel soldier that was losing his powers. As Draken spoke, "Consider your powers revoked." The soldier was deplored as he spoke, "Take him away. He is officially discharged from the army." Several soldiers removed him. Carmilla, who was beside him, commented, "You have an interesting way of dealing with insubordination. I just immediately would have shot the man. He can be reformed and convinced to see reason, so you needn't worry. Besides, I have to deal with some visitors that have headed to my world. I would love to meet my lesser version." Draken declared as he motioned a Black Arms royal guard, "Prepare my ship right away." "Yes, Lord Draken." The soldier did as he was asked, as he gave glance to Carmilla before transforming to his armor, which was completely different. It was black with red gems and had a cape. This was Draken's very own Welsh dragon balance breaker. "I will find a way to send you back to your dimension, but first I need to deal with those fools." Carmilla nodded as she spoke, "Right." Draken walked towards the landing bay of his mansion and went inside his ship and entered into the cockpit, which was Draken's personal starship, the Black Dragon Starfighter. The ship soon took off and headed off to where Juniper and Issei would be present. After all, confrontation between two Isseis was going to happen, eventually, no matter what was going to happen. Scene change. Arcadian streets, 10:15 p.m. Issei and Juniper were walking on the streets. They had worn casual clothing so that they wouldn't blend in all that much. However, much to their surprise, they saw the streets being completely empty. "Is this supposed to be a thing in this universe?" Issei asked, to which Juniper spoke, "I guess you are the multiverse traveler, not me. One, that was a mistake that brought me to that universe, and two, I was brought to the Four Kingdoms." Juniper nodded as she spoke, "Your adventure in that universe was really something, wasn't it?" "Yeah, that was the day I and many others found out about the multiverse." Issei spoke as Juniper gave a smile. However, their attention was turned to a voice. So far they had not encountered any soldiers belonging to that world, or anyone as a matter of fact. Greetings, citizens of Arcadia. The television feed plays a video of the history of Arcadia. Juniper was seething seeing this man here, as Issei also was angry, but he was calming Juniper down. Now everything is explained to what happened here, as he speaks gaining their attention. Let me remind the history of Arcadia. The Arcs were nothing but false rulers, but the Black Arms brought order and structure to the world of Arcadia. The leader, through the destruction of the Arcs, the scene shows the fall of the Arcadian forces one by the Black Arms, as the two look in horror and grit their teeth in anger. Well, the two were worried on what happened to the Arcs of this world. And what Nicholas was even saying, Juniper and Issei had to find out more on what is going on. But I am afraid that the time is past 9 p.m. and all museums and other facilities are closed. The curfew is now in effect. All the citizens return to their homes immediately. And by order of Lord Draken, they are to have a pleasant evening. They looked at each other as Issei spoke. Well, that explains everything. Juniper nodded as she spoke angrily. You are right, this is a reality where Nicholas won and we lost. A universe that shouldn't have happened. Her anger was suddenly replaced by worry as she spoke. I am worried, my family, I am worried for them. Issei realized this, he also became worried as he responded, you are right, we need to go. Issei and Juniper were about to book it when a soldier had spoken, hold it. The two froze to see two Black Arms Karma soldiers that were blue-suited individuals. They were powered by the Chaos Talon, which was a conduit for the Chaos Karma Dragon. What is it? Officer? Issei asked while masking his emotions. As the officer spoke, you are way past the curfew time, may I see your identification? We have left ours at home, and we weren't expecting to be way past the curfew, we will head back home as soon as possible. The officers were not buying it as they checked for any magic signatures and got Issei in a headlock as the officer spoke. The individual has the boosted gear, sir, I would suggest you to. The person couldn't continue as Juniper landed a brutal punch sending the soldier flying. The second one tried to defend and attack Juniper as she responded with a beam blast before the soldier could react, knocking him out cold. We need to go, Juniper shouted as Issei nodded and the two booked it out of there. The soldier that was sent flying spoke on the scroll. Inform Lord Draken that his guests were found here. We have found them heading towards the Arc Mansion. The soldier spoke on the scroll as a confirmation was heard on the other side. Scene change. Issei and Juniper were able to get away from the soldiers for now. They caught their breath as Issei spoke. That was really something. How did they sense the boosted gear then? Issei didn't have an answer to what Juniper had asked as he spoke. I don't know, but those soldiers, they had a familiar power that belonged to the Chaos Karma Dragon. No. Issei had a shocking realization. This meant that the Black Arms of this universe were able to gain access to the sacred gears. Juniper also realized this and became horrified as she spoke. We need to find a way out of here. This really is bad. Drake also was having a bad feeling about what was going to happen. He knew that something horrible is going to happen. Yeah, but how do we get back? We need to find a location where we can find a way back home. Juniper nodded in agreement as she spoke. You remember how you were brought into that world in the first place? I do. This gives us all the more reason to locate the Arc Mansion, since that is where we will find our way back. Juniper nodded in agreement as they headed to the Arc Clan Mansion. However, when they reached there, all they found was the Arc Clan Mansion in complete tatters. It was completely destroyed. As Juniper fell to her knees, tears were falling from her eyes. She knew what this meant. This meant that none of the Arcs made it out alive. They were all killed by the Black Arms of this world. Even Issei was crying when he saw this happen. No, this can't be true. This cannot be true. Juniper screamed from the top of her lungs as she knew her whole family is dead in this timeline, and as a sign, the Arc Mansion was destroyed. Issei could only hug and comfort her. She realized what happened to this universe's version of her family. They were all killed by the Black Arms, slaughtered by their relentless assaults and defeated. They could only curse their current situation right now. Their hope for returning back home was gone, and now they didn't know what to do. However, suddenly another noise caught Issei's attention as he looked up to see a ship descending upon them. As Issei spoke, Juniper, look. Juniper looked up with teary eyes and wondered who it was. Is that the Black Arms? Judging by the look, it seems like that. Issei spoke to Juniper, who was seething seeing them here. She looked at them with anger and hatred, knowing they wiped out her whole family. She looked towards Issei and asked, you have had experience being summoned to alternate dimensions before, right? The whole thing with your other alternates and stuff. Did you head towards an evil dimension or dark dimension like this? I did experience other worlds, but none like this, and I fear this is one of those realities, but whose could it be? Issei spoke with horror. They had to brace themselves on what comes next. The ship landed a few feet away from them as several Black Arms soldiers had arrived who surrounded them. Upon closer inspection, these were Black Arms Sentinel soldiers, which could divide their strength. Drake and Issei scowled, knowing what must have happened to the Albion of this universe. If Tiamat was gone, Albion must have suffered a tragic fate. A figure soon descends upon them as Juniper shouted with all of her grief, presuming it to be Nicholas. Unknown to her that it was Draken. It was not enough for you to betray and stab me in the back. You murdered my children, my family. Do you not have a shred of empathy for what you have done to them? Nicholas Kane, you rotten bastard. The figure only looked at them and spoke. Who said I was Nicholas to begin with? That power-hungry moron is long dead. I killed him personally. Although Juniper, you are right about one thing. I did wipe your family personally, tortured and killed your children and your family, and the best part is I enjoyed their suffering. The figure spoke coldly as they gritted their teeth, tears forming in their eyes, as Issei asked, who even are you then? From what I can tell you must be their leader, right? You don't even know who you are dealing with. The figure laughed as he spoke. You presume incorrectly, Issei, cause after all. Draken continues while removing his helmet, making Juniper and Issei stunned completely. You are nothing more than my lesser self. Issei and Juniper was taken aback. The one leading the Black Arms was none other than Issei himself, or an alternate version of him. I can't believe this. I am in charge. Issei spoke, as the one responded in kind. Yes, my lesser self, I am the one in charge. My name is Lord Draken, the tyrannical dictator of Arcadia. Welcome to my kingdom. The two looked in horror and terror. Issei saw Draken as a reflection of himself, a very terrible reflection, while Juniper was in complete terror, seeing the man she loved become this evil. He was a mirror of the Issei she fell for, something she would never thought would see. No, this can't be true. This has to be a damned nightmare, Issei shouted in complete disbelief, as Juniper looked towards Issei and then Draken himself. They looked almost identical except for the hair color and eyes, which was black for hair and red for eyes. She knew of her Issei being good, which meant this one joined the Black Arms, and she had an idea on why, and gritted her teeth in anger, knowing that her family was a victim in all of this, unaware of the truth. Draken only laughed at his face and spoke. I am you, or an alternate version of you. We may not look alike, but you and I are one and the same. I am like you in every way, but I am far superior, Juniper retorted angrily in response. Superior? You have got quite an ego, haven't you, Draken? Mine is earned. Draken spat with disdain as he looked at the same woman that ruined his life, as he continued, as you can see, this is the Arcadia I envisioned, or Nicholas envisioned. The two gritted their teeth in anger as he continued, still don't believe me. Draken revealed the boosted gear of his world as he continued, yes, I was once known by the weak and disgraceful name Issei Hyoudou, but that man was killed by this bitch, and then, I destroyed everything she cared for and cherished. Welcome to my Arcadia, where dissent and opposition are ruthlessly suppressed, dissenters face severe consequences, and any form of resistance is met with uncompromising force. Any and all resistance will be crushed, destroyed, and those that are involved will be made an example of. The two were in shock. He really was Issei Hyoudou, or once was, but they never thought he would be as bad as Nicholas, if not worse than him. Seeing him become a monster was terrifying. You are as bad as Nicholas. Draken laughed at her face and spoke. You are wrong, Juniper, I am not bad. The two looked in disbelief as if he was making a joke as he continued, I am far worse than him. Juniper fell back with Issei supporting her. He really accepted himself as a tyrant, a monster. Drake was stunned seeing his best friend turn into this monster, which made them wonder what happened to his counterpart and where is he. He feared for the worst. Draken snapped his fingers and ambushed them with some chains that sealed their strength and magic away. This is. Juniper spoke, remembering the magic as Draken spoke. Vlad's magic, so your powers are sealed. Take them away to my chambers, I will speak to them personally. The soldiers nodded as they were forcefully placed on the ship. They didn't have much choice as the ship rose in the air and headed straight for his castle. Scene change. Draken's ship, Arcadia, 11 p.m. Issei was still in devastation due to what happened, as Juniper could only watch the scene helplessly. They encountered an evil, twisted version of the Issei they knew, known as Lord Draken, as Juniper asked, so what is going to happen to us? That is yet to be decided, but for now, you will be imprisoned. Your deaths may lure out the resistance, so that I can deal with them personally. After all, it did work once before. Draken spoke, as Juniper responded with a hopeful tone. That's good to hear, at least someone is opposing you. There will always be people that oppose a regime, no matter how good or bad you do. Case in point, the Black Arms oppose the Arcs for more power. Here the resistance is only there to oppose my regime. The only thing common is the senseless loss of life that happens on both sides. It really is disappointing to say the least. Juniper glared at Draken's own callousness as she retorted, how can you fall this low? It takes some really messed up stuff to cause a man like me to become a monster, an animal if you may, and besides, you will see my story soon enough. Draken spoke, as Issei asked looking at him, I have met alternates before, but none like you, someone that caused until death and destruction, even wiping out many innocents. Knowing you worked for the Black Arms, what caused you to follow this route? Draken only shook his head and spoke, you will see soon enough. My lesser self. Stop calling me that, Issei angrily spoke, to which Draken didn't respond. The ship soon reached Draken's palace, as the couple was shocked by how technologically advanced the castle was, as Draken asked, you like it? I built this place myself, or more or less guided the ones building it on how exactly to build it. Issei and Juniper remained speechless as the soldiers started to drag off the couple to their holding cells, which seemed to be an Arcadian prison, as Juniper demanded, "What do you want to show us? Oh, how Arcadia is the one that made me the monster that is today, and on why you shouldn't help anyone, my lesser self." Issei scowled on hearing that while Drake was speechless to see his partner of this world to change to such an extent for vengeance. He wanted to speak, but couldn't due to the curse chains preventing his powers. He wondered where his counterparts or his family were, since it was Hades and family that prevented him from going down this route. "Partner, what happened to you to cause you to become like my previous hosts?" Drake thought with sadness as he watched Draken show them about his past. "Now before we begin, tell me. When you came back to Arcadia 6 years ago from today. Who did you came along with?" Issei looked at Draken and countered, "Why do you want to know? You did came with Hades and family, and Drake." Draken chuckled and responded, "No, you are very wrong, I only came with Drake, here take a look." Draken showed them a part of his memories as he started to explain. The two could see that Issei running with his life, he seemed to be completely in fear as Hades and his family were keeping guard. He was being chased down by the faction leaders and the DXD team. "As you can see, my past was very different as opposed to your past. In the reality where I come from, my sacred gear was detected by the factions before I left for Arcadia. In a twist of events I was made to flee from my own homeworld. Hunted down like a dog, a criminal, if you may." The scene changed to the factions overwhelming and killing Hades and his family, including Nyx and Mocha who tried to defend Issei. They all were able to use their magic to send Issei to the dimensional gap. Issei screamed with tears in his eyes, seeing on how the faction leaders killed his entire family and his loved ones, while Juniper was also crying seeing on how his family was wiped out. This Issei's life, coupled with the misery he had, lost the only ones that truly loved and cared for him. "They killed the only ones that showed me kindness and love without any mercy or empathy. They wanted my boosted gear and Drag, or more accurately, they wanted to give that gear to my so-called brother Hyoudou so that he could become more powerful. The factions deemed me unworthy of the boosted gear. Hades and family tried to stop me, but none of that stopped them, who were assisted by gods from all three pantheons like Greek, Shinto and Norse. I was powerless to stop them from killing my family, and I could only watch." Draken's voice had sadness inside of it, the only people that cared for him were gone. But it didn't matter to him, Issei cared for them, not Draken. He shook his head, not wanting to be weak like his other self. "Never again will that happen. How can this be?" Issei spoke with a devastated tone as Juniper pushed herself towards him and tried her best to calm him down. "That's just how it is, thankfully, I was saved by Great Red and Office, who sent me here. They were able to stop the faction leaders from advancing and threatened to wipe out the devils if that happened." The scene changed to Great Red and Office, stopping the faction leaders from moving any further with the threat of utter annihilation of their factions. They backed away with anger in their eyes. "Fortunately, I was sent to Arcadia with Drag, but if you think that Arcadia changed me then you are dead wrong, they are the ones that started my downfall." Draken spoke with utter disdain. Sure, Arcadia gave him 2 years of peace, but then it was nothing but misery for him. The scene changed to the gas attacks that had happened. This was watched by the two with anger, however their anger changed to shock. They saw Juniper sentencing Issei, who was beside Nicholas, Evenin, and the Arc siblings that were present looked at him with shock, disdain and anger. Juniper herself was horrified at seeing her counterpart act like this, act so blindly and under the spell of Nicholas. She gritted her teeth in anger, hating her old gullible self. "You, Juniper, it turned out are not so different from those bastard faction leaders. You, under the manipulations of Nicholas Kane, were convinced that I was the one responsible for the gas attacks, and in the end, you exiled me." Draken spoke with anger in his voice, as Juniper could only turn her gaze to Issei, who was horrified at what had happened. He knew Juniper was gullible, but this was taken to the extreme. Issei Juniper muttered in horror as Draken glared at her making her flinch. He then continued, "Even in Ren was no better, she also fell for Nicholas's manipulation, and the worst part is, she discredited me and turned her back. That was the day I realized that no matter where I go, there will always be someone that will make my life miserable, whether it be Dai or Nicholas." Issei then asked in response, "What about Willow-sensei? Where was she in all of this?" "She was with Gel, trying to put up a facade of a good wife. I believe you remember the day when you were given to Ren, so that she could mentor you?" Issei nodded as he spoke. "Yeah, I do. Anyways, that is what happened. I was exiled to the Outlands, but this was all part of Nicholas's schemes. He wanted me to join the Black Arms. The worst part is, he succeeded. He ambushed and captured me in a hidden base. They tortured me for days. Days changed to weeks, weeks changed to months, but I never broke." The scene changed to Issei's capture and torture, who screamed in pain begging them to stop this torture and pain, however no one cared, no one listened, and they all enjoyed making him suffer. This broke Juniper, seeing the man she loved being tortured mentally and physically. Even Drake was horrified by what he was witnessing, all because of Nicholas framing Issei for the bombings, something he never even would have done at all. Juniper was crying seeing this, while Issei silently watched as Draken spoke, until Carmilla, or my Carmilla, decided to break me, using a device that destroys souls. He killed my universe's Drake right in front of my eyes, destroying any sanity that I have left. The scene changed to Carmilla aiming her gun towards Drake and firing upon his, destroying any soul that was left inside. In the gear, Drake was screaming in pain till he couldn't take it anymore. He soon passed away, giving all of his powers to that Issei, while he could only watch. The day Drake died was the day Issei died too, and Draken was born, Draken declared, as the two were horrified beyond belief. Drake was pale at seeing himself die in such a manner, and worse, his death was the tipping point at what caused Issei to become a monster. Juniper could only tear up, devastated, weeping at what had happened, once again blaming herself for listening and being manipulated by Nicholas. Issei was shaking seeing this. Just some small changes in this world made everything go to hell. He detested Nicholas and Dai for taking away everything from him, torturing and breaking them, turning him into the monster that he is today. He could only look at Juniper, constantly muttering, "This is all my fault." It was a repeat of the events of that had happened during the beginning of the Arc Civil War. But I am not done yet. I realized that my whole life was filled with misery. I tried helping people and all I got was hatred and disdain. It was like the whole universe wanted me to suffer, wanted me to be in pain. That was when I decided, if the universe wants me to suffer, then I shall do just that. I will also return the suffering it gave me, and I will not show any mercy to anyone, and it turns out I was quite good at inflicting misery and destruction upon others. The scene changed to Juniper and Draken clashing, the former trying her best to make him see reason, but he detests her and wants her to suffer. It showed events and scenes of Draken overpowering and defeating them at every step. Eventually cornering and eliminating anyone that opposed him, those that didn't surrender to him and the Black Arms. Eventually, your counterpart and Liam's counterpart tried to use the Infinity Stones, such that they could finally win against the Black Arms. But I did not let that happen. I interfered in the process, and eventually I became a god. The scene changed to Juniper and Liam of that universe trying to use the Infinity Stones to win the war, only for Draken to intervene. A clash ensued between Liam and Juniper against Draken, as he was able to blindside them and absorb the stones for himself. The scene shows Draken in his new armor, looking down upon Juniper and Liam, who had horror and shock in their eyes. "No, how can this be?" Juniper spoke with horror. Even Issei remained in terror, knowing how strong Draken really is. Not only does he have the boosted gear and his intelligence, but he also has the Infinity Stones now. He had become even more powerful than anyone in Arcadia. "It is possible. My Carmilla augmented my body to absorb the Infinity Stones. Think of me as a better version of a walking Infinity Gauntlet." Draken spoke with a cackle, as Juniper asked with fear, "What did you do then?" "Well, I ended your family first. Just watch on how I managed to wipe out anyone that stood in my way. I made sure to hunt down every last arc in my reality. Not even the dark arcs, or those that betrayed the family, were spared," Draken declared, making Juniper remember on how this iteration of Issei killed her children. She saw the scene of what happened, and tears were falling from her eyes. The scene showed Draken now unmasked, holding the decapitated head of Liam Arc, who had a look of terror. Draken can be seen crushing his eyes. The Arc siblings watching in horror and terror. Some having immediate anger like Saffron. "Liam Arc was my first kill, and soon everyone had followed. They all fell by my hands one by one. I slaughtered them, their friends and relatives, and tormented all those that were responsible for my state," Draken declared with madness, seeing the devastation in the eyes of his two prisoners. The scene showed Draken slaughtering the Arc siblings relentlessly and absorbing their icons, eventually hunting down the Arc Elders and the 1-5, all of whom were slaughtered by Draken's hands. He also killed anyone else that were close friends with the Arcs, like Terracotta Arc or the Winchester family for example. None survived the wrath of Lord Draken. The tears only increased, and Juniper wailed in agony knowing her children died in this timeline. Issei could only watch helplessly as tears fell from his eyes, glaring at Draken, but soon turning away knowing he could have turned into a monster like him if the conditions were met. Draken gleefully watched Juniper suffer. He hated the woman in front of him the most. He detested her to the point of no return. He could care less whether it was her fault or not. He just enjoyed seeing her suffer and grieve. "You two see it now, don't you? You created this monster, Juniper, by trusting that bastard of a husband. You created Draken. You killed the only one that cherished and cared for me. I am a product of your sins, your mistrust, and now I will destroy everything you two cherish, just like I did to my Juniper. I will do the same to your Juniper as well." Juniper could only look in horror and fear, seeing that her mistake caused Issei to become Draken. She hated her past self even more. She hated that she was the one that turned the man she loves into a monster. "But if you think I am done, then you are dead wrong. When I mentioned I hunted down the Dark Arcs, I did so. I did not spare anyone, not even Carmilla and Frisia survived against me. The scene changed to Draken looking down on the black arms cheering for him. He soon stabs in the backs of Nicholas and Vlad, killing them, and eventually hunts down Carmilla and Frisia by tricking them and torturing them for days until he kills them as well. Eventually he subdues and deals with any allies of the Arcs and eliminates any possible threat to his rule, becoming the tyrannical dictator of Arcadia. The two could only look at Draken with sadness and tears in their eyes. They were devastated at what he had done, Juniper even more so cause she caused Draken's fall. Then what about Great Red and Office? Issei asked, to which Draken flinched as he spoke. They weren't killed by the leaders, so what about them? Draken could only remain silent for a moment as he spoke. They were killed by the beings from the X-world, Eevees to be precise. It turns out that they were called courtesy of Au.RageRevan, who had sent plans to the world before being killed by Surziches. This happened after I had left for Arcadia. Since Au.RageRevan is alive, he must have also tried to send it by now, right? Juniper was surprised by this. She knew of the Eevee and has heard of them. Their race has been conquering other planets. But they avoid Arcadian territories for now, since Arcadia was able to repel the invasion multiple times. She knows Issei knew this when he had informed her about Au.RageRevan and Euclid, which he came to know courtesy of Hades. But she never thought they would reach Earth of all places, since Hades stopped and destroyed the transmission and plans. But here, since Hades was long dead, this happening was plausible. After that, all hope I had was gone. Everyone I knew was dead. I decided to do the only logical thing left. The reason I had even returned to my homeworld was nothing but vengeance. I located them first, wondering what happened after my disappearance, but I found their corpses floating in the dimensional gap. The scene changed to their dead bodies that were floating in the gap. Draken could only watch in horror as tears fall from his eyes. He lost everyone that he had cared for. He had lost any and all semblance that he had of his old self. He vowed vengeance against the Eevees, eventually slaughtering every last one of them, including their leader Malvazoa. The terror and despair in the two increased even more. He had dealt with an entire faction that slaughtered Great Red and Office like nothing. He wiped every last person out. Draken then spoke with a cold tone. All that remained was my old planet. I crashed their wedding and destroyed their hope, hunted and tortured all those that made my life miserable for years. I showed no mercy to anyone. I destroyed their hope, crushed any and all resistance and strength they had to oppose me. I enjoyed seeing the hope go away, and when they were at the edge, they had lost any and all fight against me. I revealed the truth. The scene changes to Draken clashing against the faction leaders and their armies against his own army. He hunted down the sacred gear wielders and took away their gears while making sure they were alive. He empowers his army with them as he sees them losing their hope. He destroys any and all armies that stand in his way while mocking and humiliating the leaders in any way. Soon enough, he corners them and reveals the truth. He forced I to reveal the truth in front of everyone using the Infinity Stones, which made them horrified. Once all their hope was gone, I destroyed their will to live. Draken tortures the leaders for days. He breaks them physically and mentally. He enjoyed seeing them suffer as they plead for mercy. But Draken was not going to show them mercy. He wanted them to be tormented. He did not care anymore. He even manipulated two people to be brought to his side. He made them kill their loved ones and have fun with them. Once he was bored, he killed them. He soon sat on a throne that had the heads of the faction leaders lying on the floor, with Surzich's head next to the armrest. After that, I enjoyed what had happened to them and sat on my new throne, made from years of blood, sweat and hatred, now as the new tyrannical dictator of this universe. Draken spoke as they became horrified at what happened. Juniper realized Draken was what Issei could have been, all because of one mistake and a terrible past. A monster was born. She hated the leaders even more for making him a monster, having no empathy for their deaths. So tell me, how can you trust this woman, Issei? She is no better than the faction leaders. Tell me, she would have made you into me, just like how it is supposed to be. You were meant to be a monster, Issei, think about it. Draken spoke, to which Issei looked at his wife. She was shaking and shivering. Tears were falling from her eyes on how Draken could have been Issei once, had she not believed Nicholas. She was blaming herself and is on the verge of a mental breakdown. She hated herself even more. Issei had to do something. He didn't have anything to say to Draken for now. This was something that could have happened to him, but he soon remembered on how she trusted him even before they fell in love. She told him things that she would normally not tell many people. She made sure to train him properly, something that Draken had forgotten, but he did not blame him. She never did this to him and would have believed him regardless of what happens, at least now she would. She had become more sensitive to betrayal and consent than before. His face was covered with his hair and he started to chuckle, much to everyone's surprise. Juniper stopped shaking and looked at him speak. Is it not obvious? My friends and parents were given a new home. They were hated by many people. I believe in my wife and trust she would never do what your Juniper did to you, Issei spoke with defiance, with Juniper looking at him, as Issei continued, even then, I would never turn out like you did, your Drag and your friends and family, they would fear and hate you for what you have become. You are right about one thing, I may end up becoming like you, but I would remember that this is not what Drag would have wanted. This is not what Mocha, Nyx, Persephone, Hades, Melano and Macaria would have wanted me to become. What would they think of you, Draken? Issei responded defiantly as Juniper could only watch helplessly. He still was Issei even now, even if Draken showed him the truth. He did not break, he was devastated, but he was still defiant. Draken got angry at his response and punched him hard such that his chin almost broke. Juniper shouted Issei. She crawled to him as she could see the bruise. Draken looked at Issei with utter disgust and spoke, you don't get it, do you? How can you trust her so much? You would have been in the same situation as me, that is why, I am telling you, don't trust her, don't believe her, cause she is no better than the faction leaders, she is a gullible idiot that can be manipulated, just like how the faction leaders were manipulated by our so-called younger brother Hyoudou. But worry not, you will soon realize that you were destined to become just like me, a monster. Draken spoke with a dark grin, as he intended to break his counterpart physically and mentally, just like he did. S2 Chapter 10. Shattered Kingdom. In Arcadia, a few days later, Jade's laboratory, 9:30 am. Jade has been working on the pieces that she had salvaged from the Black Dragon Emperor's parts. There were fortunately some leftovers from the armor. She had been working day and night trying to locate the source of that thing. Her hope was that whoever was piloting that thing could be traced. She knew that was where her parents were taken, and she would find a way where it was. Aside from the things that had happened in Kuo Academy, it turns out that Dai's actions had a massive impact as well. Girls that loved him there were horrified and terrified to know that Dai was such a monstrous being. While the girls that tormented Issei were fearful and guilty for what they had done. Unfortunately nothing could be done, as they were swiftly hunted down by the Arc siblings and Invictus, especially Multi, Aya, and many others were brutally tortured and killed by the siblings. Especially Multi, who tried to frame their father for rape and got what they deserved. The others were either imprisoned or had completely ruined their lives. It was so bad that many couldn't even leave their houses without being hated by the people from Kuo town. Heading back to the present, Jade was working on the pieces. She had never slept for days. She had bags underneath her eyes and was analyzing the pieces. Soon someone came inside. Jade? The one who called was Aqua, as she asked, Jade, you there? Jade did not respond, as Aqua turned to her paternal grandmother Persephone, as she spoke, Grandma, she has been working on this for days. Yeah, let's head inside and speak to her, Persephone suggested as Aqua nodded. She then walked inside, and Aqua tapped on her shoulder. Jade exclaimed with surprise, as she turned to see Aqua and Persephone, who were stunned by this, as she added, Grandma Aqua, what are you doing here? You have been in the laboratory for days, you need to take some rest. Persephone spoke with concern, as Jade spoke, not yet, I am close to analyzing the Black Dragon, I can't give up just yet, Dad and Mom are in danger, and no way I am giving up yet. Persephone and Aqua only looked helplessly, they wanted to do something, but suddenly, a beeping noise came from the machine. She rushed towards the machine and finally got a report. What does it say, Jade? Aqua asked Jade, who was reading the report, as she spoke, this can't be. The Black Dragon Emperor's armor, Jade spoke after a pause, is made from the same material as Dad's balance breaker. The look of horror was present on Persephone and Aqua, meaning whoever piloted the Black Dragon Emperor's suit has access to Issei's power, and that is anything but good news. Draken's world, prison, Draken's castle, 10:30 p.m. Draken had left the duo to contemplate, deciding to torture them at a later date. He had removed their chains as well, presuming that their lack of magic will be present for a while, before he can recapture them. Juniper was only looking at Issei, who had become completely emotionless, unable to move. He was too shocked to realize that he could have been like Draken. She then spoke. Ice? Juniper asked, to which he could only look at her, as she spoke with an apologetic tone. Please, forgive me for being so gullible. Why was I this gullible? Please, forgive me for killing Drag. I would never do this to you because of me. Your counterpart lost his Drag, and everything fell apart. This is all my fault. Please forgive me. Issei could only look at her and remain speechless. What Draken said did affect him as well. If the situations were right, he could have become like Draken. He knew that Draken lost everything, his friends, his family and his true best friend. He was tortured for months and became a monster because of that, otherwise he would have been a broken man, but at least he would have Drag. He cursed the factions for killing his only family that loved him. It is not your fault. Please don't beat yourself up for your counterpart's mistakes. Issei spoke as he brings her in close for a hug. There was nothing they could do for Draken, or that is what they think. Since in his eyes, he only sees himself as someone who always was destined to suffer constantly and to return the suffering. He also believes that other Isseis should become like him as well. But even then, because of me, Carmilla of that world killed Drake, and I am to blame for that. Nicholas ruined so many lives, because I enabled him to do so. I was too blind to even realize what had happened, until it was too late. Even then, your counterpart lost everything because of my counterpart's actions. He turned into Draken because of this. Issei couldn't say anything, but held her tighter. He knew how much her devastation were caused by Nicholas, and she was blind to it. However, they had to find a way to get out of here. They may be out of power, but they had no other option. They had to escape from this place, else Draken will just torture them, and he is not going to let him hurt them in any way. I never will blame you for what your counterpart did, it is not your fault. Draken will not break our bond that easily, you can count on it. Issei spoke as he kissed Juniper's forehead. As she cried onto him, Issei embraced her, knowing it was not her fault for Draken's existence. While Juniper blamed herself on what happened to his counterpart. Her counterpart foolishly believed Nicholas, and because of which, her whole kingdom and family had to pay the price. Even Issei had to pay the price because of her actions. After a while, Juniper spoke while splitting up, so what now? We get out of here. Issei got up and looked at the outside as she spoke, but how? Draken is already monitoring us as we speak, how can we get out without alerting him? It is a risk. But we have to alert him. Juniper looked at him for a moment as she asked, so what are you thinking? There is a river downside the castle walls. If we blow this up, we can leap and get out of here. Issei spoke as she continued, but we need to act fast. Draken will be here at any moment. I am fine with blowing the wall up, but how can we? We have lost our magic thanks to Draken using Vlad's magic. Juniper tried to sense her magic. As she was surprised, she then spoke. I have some power. In me. Issei nodded at this as she asked, try sensing yours. Issei nodded as he could feel some of his power returning. As she suggested, if we try to work together, we can maybe break the wall. Yep, but how long will you be able to hold your breath? Issei asked as Juniper had a drop of sweat as she asked, are you really asking me this? Never mind, let's get out of here. Issei spoke as Juniper nodded. The duo nodded as they used the magic reserves they had as she spoke. Now, Issei nodded as the couple used their magic to blow the wall. Juniper used nuclear elemental magic, while Issei used his fire magic as they exploded the wall. Issei shouted, now jump. The couple immediately jumped down into the river as they fell into the stream. The river was fortunately deep enough for them to survive the fall as they swam to the surface. However, to their misfortune the stream's current was strong as Issei grabbed a branch as he shouted. Juniper grabbed my hand. Juniper used all of her strength to grab his hand as Issei held on tight. He soon pushed himself using whatever strength he had to the river bank as he sighed in relief. He soon got up completely soaked as he helped his wife up. They both were breathing heavily as he spoke, you okay? Yeah, that was risky, we could have been blown off by the river's current. Juniper spoke as she catching a break. She then spoke, at least we got rid of Draken coming behind us. Yep, let's head to a safe location before Draken finds us again. Issei spoke as Juniper nodded. The couple soon decided to head it out while still soaking wet. They had to find a way to locate this rebellion that Draken spoke of. Scene change. Draken was looking at the castle and anger in his eyes as he screamed while radiating his aura, shaking the castle. Juniper. The soldiers and others were completely fearful as they were running around with fear, knowing full well someone must have foolishly provoked their lord's wrath. Adam and Scarlet looked at each other as they immediately rushed down. Let's go, Adam. Scarlet spoke seriously as Adam responded to one of the Karma soldiers. Alert General Sustrai and General Lucifuge about the situation. Make sure to increase patrols around ... in case the two are located. As you wish, General Taurus. The soldier left as Scarlet spoke. It must be Lord Draken's lesser self that had escaped, along with that disgraceful empress. Yep, I know, and I have an idea on where they are going. Adam spoke as Scarlet asked, you know. How? I am not sure of it, it is more or less an hunch. Since Lord Draken was once Issei, I may have an idea of where they are going. Adam responded as Scarlet spoke, very well Adam, you are one of the 3 people that can survive in the Lord's vicinity when he is angry. Adam and Scarlet nodded as they rushed out to the prison area where Issei and Juniper was present. Scarlet looked at Adam as Adam spoke, I will go inside, you make sure that no one enters this room. Right, Adam's body suddenly glowed as he entered into his Mandarin armor with all the Makluan rings with him. This was given to Adam once Draken had dealt with in Ren of his universe. Adam went inside as he spoke, Lord Draken listen. Draken looked at him as he asked, what? I may have an idea on how to locate them. Lord Draken listen to me, Please stop releasing your aura. Draken looked at him for a moment and stopped expelling his aura as he spoke. This better be good, Adam. It will, Lord Draken, and if this works, we may even find those pesky rebels that have been opposing your world in order, along with that disgraceful Sephiroth. Adam spoke as Scarlet walked forward. Adam then suggested while powering down, Lord Draken, if we can use the boosted gear's signature that your counterpart uses. We can locate where they are and there is a possibility where they have gone. They must have gone to the rebellion, where Willow and John, of timeline 9905 is located. Lord Draken thought for a moment as he spoke, it is worth a shot. They cannot leave this world for the time being. Prepare my ship, let's get to the system that connects the Divine Dividing, Regulus Nemia and Canis Lycaon. That is where we can track the boosted gear, since it is one of the gears that contains the spirit of a being inside. Draken commanded as Adam spoke, yes Lord Draken. Scene change. Issei and Juniper were in a cave as they light up a fire to warm themselves. It would take some time for their magic to be restored. Juniper then spoke, so what is the plan now? Truth be told, we need to locate the rebellion. I am not sure, but we can only hope that there is someone that can bring us. We need to hide from Draken as well, since by now, he can locate us using our signature. Issei spoke as the boosted gear manifested in his hand, much to his surprise and happiness, as Drake spoke. Yeah, you are right, Draken needs to be stopped, but given his power, I fear that neither you nor Juniper may have the power to stop him completely. Drake spoke with seriousness, but there was traces of sadness in his voice, as Juniper asked, how are you doing, Drake? Drake spoke from the gear, I am doing fine. Despite Draken using Vlad's magic, he was not able to seal me forever. I can talk to you, but only talk. It will take some more time for Issei to use his full powers. The curse was meant to keep your magic at bay long enough to make sure he does not use his powers. Same goes for you, Juniper. Yeah, I can see that, Juniper spoke, as Drake added, even then, I am horrified. Just one mistake costed everything. Nobody knows what happened to your counterpart, and all the arcs were hunted down. I wonder if the situations were right on what would have happened to me and partner. It is the multiverse, Drake, anything is possible. This is just something that should have never happened. Issei spoke with a serious tone, as he added, but you are right, what if the situations were right, what if I had lost everything? Ice Juniper approached him and kept her hand on him as Issei spoke. I mean, look at what Draken went through. Mom and Dad along with Melano, Macaria, Nyx and Mocha were killed by the factions right in front of his eyes. Then Drake suffered the same fate by that orange-haired bitch's hands, and finally Red and Office were killed by the X-beings. He lost everything, and to top it all off, he was framed and tortured for days. I mean, I myself wouldn't be able to remain sane. I was already bad enough when I came here, and that was with them beside me, minus Mocha who joined after a while. But for him, everyone has been either dead or we're going to die. What if Issei looked at his hand as he spoke, what if I haven't turned evil yet? Issei, look at me. Issei turns to see Juniper as she speaks, you will not turn evil, I know it because you rejected Draken completely, but even then what he went through it can break anybody. I myself wouldn't remain sane after losing my friends and family, especially if they were killed in front of my eyes. Worse, those bastards even killed Nyx and Mocha, and I don't forgive anyone that harms my family. I can't blame Draken for what he did. Issei hummed in agreement, neither he could blame Draken for he did, as Juniper pulled him close as she spoke, but know this, I can never see Draken inside of you, he was always alone with no one to be there, but you are different. How so? Issei asked, but before Juniper could answer, some rustling was heard as they both became alert. Suddenly several figures barged in, these had their weapons aimed at the two, as Issei and Juniper were on guard. He then asked, who the hell are you? I will explain that. Issei spoke as he added, the voice seems familiar, Holly. Issei remembered Holly Madison, meeting her on two separate occasions, once courtesy of Aqua, when she introduced him to his Holly, and the second was because John couldn't stop doing the deed with her sister Scarlet. The woman soon appears, she was a red-haired woman with light blue eyes, she wore a sleeveless vest and pants. This was Draken's world, Holly Madison. I would advise the two of you to surrender. Draken. Holly spoke seriously, as Issei spoke, Holly, I am not Draken, sure I may look like him, but I am not Draken, my name is Issei Hyoudou, and I am not Draken. I refuse to believe you are Issei of all people, that man died and was replaced by Draken, he is the reason why Arcadia is in tatters, tell me who you really are. Holly shouted with anger, she wanted to believe that the person in front of him was not Draken, but it was just that, he looked too similar to Draken. Look Holly, we are willing to surrender, just don't shoot us, and if you want to see, the woman beside me is Juniper Arc. Holly turns her gaze to Juniper, she failed to notice her before, since she first looked towards Issei and speaks in disbelief, no way, your highness. Why you have gone missing for so long? Yes, it is me. But I am not this world's Juniper, both me and Issei hail from a different world. Holly looked at her for a moment and spoke, "Come with us, and I would advise you to surrender both of you, I still don't completely trust either of you." "What should we do?" Issei asked, to which Juniper responded, "Maybe we should turn ourselves in, I doubt they are on Draken's side." "Fine, we surrender." Holly nodded as she took out some cuffs and cuffed the duo as she took them to their secret base along with the rebel soldiers, as Issei asked, "So I can presume you are rebelling against his regime?" "Yes, we were once a handful of soldiers with no hope, that was until we came to know of the multiverse from this Jade's notes. She informed us of a world where the Arcadians won against the Black Arms, causing us to bring some of them here, and they helped us a lot. Then we discovered the other Isseis thanks to a suggestion, and we were hoping to bring one of you, since we still needed to fight, but Draken destroyed our every effort to bring them here, causing us to start all over again." Holly spoke with a sigh as she continued, "And from what I can tell, the two of you were brought here by him. Since it was not us that brought you here, and your magic signature is similar to Draken, meaning you were brought by here by Draken." "Yep, that is the gist of it. Turns out, he wants me to become just like him." Issei spoke as he added, "I really don't know why though." Holly was going to respond, but she notices that they have reached the location. "I will explain everything later. We are called the Shattered Kingdom, the remnant of a once powerful kingdom, and our leader would want to speak to you." Holly spoke with a serious tone as she opened the door and spoke to a soldier. "Bring them in." The soldiers grabbed them and motioned the two forward as they entered into the base. They looked to see themselves being surrounded by several more soldiers as a familiar woman showed up from the shadows as the darkness cloaked her appearance. "Seems like you finally decided to show yourself, don't you, Juniper? After you went to missing for more than 20 years. Issei and Juniper looked at each other's as he asked, "No way, you are. So never thought one of the Isseis would end up in our desolate world." The figure showed herself to be Willow Schnee herself, much to the duo's surprise, as Holly spoke, "That is our leader, and the leader of the rebellion, Shattered Kingdom, Willow Schnee." Willow soon showed herself, she barely changed, except her outfit was far more armored than before, as she looked down on her two guests. She knew this was not her Issei, but she wondered who this Juniper is. "So you brought them here, Holly?" Holly nodded as she spoke, "Yes I did. He and Draken share the same energy signature, you know what this means, right?" Willow looked at him for a moment and couldn't help but have tears in her eyes, although she hid it from them. She saw her former student return, but she knew this was not her Issei. Her Issei was long gone, killed by the monster named Draken. She saw who this Issei was, a version that never had to go through what she did. "That means, you are the one fighting against Draken, right?" Issei asked, snapping Willow out of her state as she spoke, "Yes I am, you must be Issei of one of the different universes, can you state who you really are?" "Yes, my full name is Issei Hyoudou, and I am the current emperor of my universe, Willow-sensei." Willow flinched upon hearing that word, she hasn't heard it for a very long time, unless it was in a mocking manner courtesy of Draken. Most of the time, he calls her Sephiroth with complete and utter disdain. She couldn't help but realize this version of Issei was what hers could have been had it not been for Juniper's gullibility and Nicholas's deceit coupled with Carmella's torture that made Draken the monster he is. "And I am his world's Juniper, his current wife." Willow was even more stunned, a version of Issei was married to her, she was no secret to this, after all she did view another version that was married to her for over 30 years. But to see a second one did catch her off guard. "I see." Willow spoke as she gave a smile, "It seems like my Juniper is nowhere to be found even now." "What do you mean by that?" Juniper asked this universe's Willow as Holly spoke, "The Empress Juniper of this world has not been seen for more than 20 years, nobody knows where she is or what she is doing. Or if she is alive. If anything, wherever she is, I can only hope she is doing fine. If she wants to remain in self-exile for her stupidity, I could care less." Willow spoke coldly and with slight anger, as Juniper was stunned. She didn't know Willow had this much anger in her. Willow looked to see the stunned look of Juniper and the surprised look of Issei. She calmed down and spoke, "I apologize for my tone, I will explain everything inside." Willow spoke as she spoke to the soldiers, "Release their restraints." Willow's command was nodded by the soldiers as they released the two, as Willow spoke, "Come follow me." Willow spoke as Issei and Juniper followed her with Holly trailing behind soon enough. They soon settled down in a meeting room as Willow spoke with a sigh. "Welcome to what remains of Arcadia. It is not much, but we make do with what we have. We were in a much worse state, but thanks to a certain blonde, we were able to make do with what we have." The duo were surprised as Issei spoke, "But shouldn't the John of this world be dead?" Issei asked, to which Willow shook her head and spoke, "This John is from a different world, just like the two of you." "Yes, and I believe that is true." There was a voice that caught them off guard as it was revealed to be John, however he looked much more different compared to what he looks like normally. He is now sporting a slick back hairstyle, where his long blonde hair is now shorter than his usual hairstyle, and is donning an Arcadian military outfit. The outfit is comprised of a black long-sleeved shirt and pants, black bulletproof vest, an ammo pouch around his waist, and black armor on his arms. Never thought an Issei would be here, and John was unable to complete when he was immediately tackled by his mother, who gave him a bone-crushing hug, who was crying as she spoke, "Oh, I am so glad that you are alive, Mom, John was stunned as he returned the hug of his mother, even she was from a different world. She was still his mother, as Issei watched with a small smile. She then spoke, "I know you are not my John. But it is good to see you again. My son." Juniper spoke with a smile, as John nods. "Yes, I miss you too, Mom." Juniper returned the smile, as he turned to Issei and asked, "I guess I should call you Dad." "No, just Issei would be fine. I doubt there is an Issei in your timeline." John nods, as Issei asks, "So which world are you from?" "I can't say for sure, but I am from Remnant 9905 or Universe 9905. Does the number mean anything to you, Issei?" Issei shakes his head in response and speaks, "No, the 9 other Isseis I had met never had the number. The closest to your world belongs to Regus's world, which was Amarius, or I should say Earth 7759. That means you assigned numbers to your universes. I thought you guys just called by your names, like how you are called Arcadia when other Isseis are around." Issei nodded as he spoke. "It was one of the Issei's idea, so as to not confuse us we were given random numbers, such as to refer to our current number, in case we are to identify in a horde of different Isseis, or in this case when an Issei is not found yet. Like this John's universe. I believe you haven't located your Issei yet, right?" John nodded as he spoke. "It's true, we haven't located the Issei of my universe. Mom, or I should say Juniper of my world, is trying her best to see if Issei does exist, since she fears Draken invading her world. She needs to locate and protect Issei due to his natural hatred for other Isseis." The duo nodded as Juniper asked her son from another world, "Why would Draken hate Issei?" "I mean, I can understand he hates Arcadians for what they did to him, but why other Isseis?" "It is because he has seen the multiverse, Juniper." Willow spoke as she explained, his whole life was filled with misery and darkness, and when he saw how happy other Isseis were, he detested that. In his eyes, why should he suffer? Why was he of all the Isseis meant to suffer his whole life? When the others were able to find happiness and their peace, why was he tormented and tortured? And worst of all, why did he lose his drag when the others didn't? That is why he wants the other Isseis to become as miserable as he is, and he is not above conquering other worlds, to show that Issei and make them like him. Miserable and lonely. Not dimension. If there is anything that Draken hates more than any arc, it is himself. It is Issei Hyoudou. Issei and Juniper were horrified by this, as he spoke, "Ram. This is bad, we need to warn your counterparts and our world of a potential invasion." Juniper spoke with fear, as Draken will most likely go for their universe or worse, one of the other Issei's universes. "We know, but how? How are we supposed to do it without alerting him to our location?" Holly spoke as the others also wondered on what is supposed to be done next. John then asked, "Hey Issei, mind if I ask you something?" Issei turned around as he nodded, with John asking, "Draken came alone to Arcadia minus Drag, right? He told me once when he had captured me about on how my siblings supported and cared for me, while he didn't. So could you tell me what his life was like before he came to this Arcadia?" Issei nodded, he was not shackled by his past anymore. After confronting it multiple times and with the help of his friends, wives and family, along with witnessing Draken himself, he no longer feared or was shackled by it anymore. "I will explain my backstory and his backstory, and let me tell you John, it is anything but pretty." Issei spoke, revealing his past to everyone, as he followed it up by the differences in them as opposed to Draken. The looks on the faces of the onlookers were filled with horror and despair, which was soon filled with anger. "That bastard he is no better than Nicholas. How can he be this selfish? How can he ruin his own brother's life for power, fame and glory, and those bastard faction leaders, thinking that the world revolves around them? I wish to burn them alive with my powers. They are no better than those outsiders." John shouted with anger, as he was trying his best to control his anger. As Holly spoke with sadness, she couldn't help but realize on how Draken would have been had it not been for his miserable childhood. She couldn't hate him as much as she hated him before knowing this. He had no one left to call a friend or family. They killed his own adoptive friends and family in front of his eyes. He had watched everyone he cared for die in front of his own eyes and curse his birth parents and siblings for being complicit in their demises. "I am glad they are dead in this world. As much as I hate to say it, they deserved everything that was coming to them." Holly spoke with anger and spite in her voice. She detested the faction leaders, as Juniper hugged her son to calm him down, which did work, and he spoke with sadness. Worst of all, he came to Arcadia to start a new life. He had lost everything and he hoped to start anew with his best friend. Our counterparts gave him hope and we took it away. Holly spoke with sadness as she continued, "He came for us for refuge and help, and we made matters worse. I need some time away." Willow got up and left the room. After knowing just how badly Issei had suffered, she felt even more guilt. She detested the faction leaders for being the core reason on why his life is so bad. I will look after her. Juniper spoke as Issei stopped. No, Juniper, let me be the one to do so. If anything, it would be wise if I am the one to do it. But Juniper tried to retort, but Issei spoke. I understand you want to do this for your best friend, but it is obvious that Willow-sensei does hold anger towards you, especially after what your counterpart had done to mine. Let me be the one to talk to her. Issei spoke as Juniper could only nod, leaving the three alone as they pondered on what needs to be done next. Scene change. Willow could be seen at the bar, holding a bottle of whiskey that she has been often used to have. She almost had one bottle on a daily basis to cope with the guilt that she was going through. She was about to open the bottle. But Issei held it and spoke, it is not going to do you any good. Leave me be, Issei, let me drink. Willow spoke as she continued, and it is the only way I can cope. Draken has taken so much away from me, it is the only way I can forget on what has happened to my Issei and my children. Issei was not letting her drink that as he clashed with Willow, who demanded, let go of it. Hell no, I won't see you in this situation ever again, Issei spoke as he pulled the drink away from her as they struggled for a while till the whiskey fell to the floor, cracking it as she shouted in anger at him. Why can't you leave me alone? I have nothing left in my life. I never cared for my own children, thinking that they were related to Zoc, ignoring and leaving them on their own. I even wasn't there when you were being tortured. I am just a failure for being a mentor and a mother. I failed my children and my student. I abandoned them and wasn't there for them. I am just a failure. Leave me alone, Issei retorted in response. I can't. Why? Willow looked at him with tears in her eyes. You are a prime reminder of my failures. You are what my Issei would have been had I not left you. I am just leave me alone. Willow screamed her heart out as she used her one wing and flew off as Issei shouts, Willow, wait. Issei raised his hand trying to stop her as he watched her helplessly leave the room. Suddenly a voice speaks. Don't bother, Issei. Issei turned to see Holly as she spoke. Whenever Issei is mentioned, she always gets personal. She has been like that for years. Their appearance has only made it worse. You are what Draken would have been had the situations been better. If only she was there for you at the right time, had the conditions been right, even a little, Draken would have never been born. She hates herself the most, like Draken, for her past actions. Arcadia has always had its fair share of problems, those from the Four Kingdoms, and I can say it is true for your universe as well, right? Issei nodded in response as Holly continues, then you know what must have happened, right? Willow neglected her children due to being with Jacques blood, and when she realized what she had done, it was too late. Draken had killed all of them, and worse, he mocked her for being a failure as a mother. I have been trying to help her as much as I can, so have John from that universe, and even James Ironwood, one of the survivors of Draken's onslaught, is helping her, but it has ended in failure. I see. Issei spoke sadly as he looked at her and asked, and from what I can tell, you are the only survivor of the Madison family, right? Yes, I am. What kind of a person is your Scarlet? Before I tell you mine. Issei was about to speak as someone from spoke in the shadows. My future daughter-in-law. The one who spoke was Juniper, as she turned to see Juniper of Issei's world and John of Remnant 9905. The latter seemed to be too dazed to move, almost seeming like his mother made him listen to an earful, making Issei have an idea of what just happened. Your Highness, what do you mean by daughter-in-law? Holly asked, to which Juniper spoke with a sweet smile, oh, it is nothing, my son of my world has impregnated that Scarlet and she is now having a baby thanks to him. Holly was stunned. She took a glance towards Issei, who was completely shaking with fear. He could only pity John of his world, remembering on how John's mothers and Persephone taught him a lesson he could never forget. He then spoke while calming down. My harem and my mother made sure that John would think twice before sticking his hick into any girl ever again. I, Hades and Great Red, had to stop them from killing the poor boy. Issei spoke with fear, as Juniper spoke with a sweet smile, you are right on that one, and even this John is not going to do it with any of his girls, right my dear John? John was shivering. In any universe he was terrified of his mother the most, as he spoke with a fear, why yes. Mom. That wasn't loud enough, or do you want another earful, John? John was sweating even more as he shouted, yes mom. Excellent, Juniper spoke, as Holly could only sigh in relief. She knew that even that Scarlet was not evil unlike hers. Not only that, it seemed like her universe's Holly was going to be an ant. She gave a glance to John, who was fearful as hell. She spoke with a relieved tone. That is great to hear, at least she did not turn out like my universe's Scarlet. Juniper lost her smile as she asked, what do you mean, Holly? Holly was about to answer as John had spoken, I will explain, Mom. Juniper looked at John, who was looking sad, making her wonder what happened as John explained. In this world Issei was not the only one that turned evil. Scarlet also became evil. She abandoned and hated her old last name and changed it to Scarlet, nicknamed the Red Blood Witch. She has completely lost it and she completely despises me. Juniper and Issei looked horrified as Holly continued, whereas she killed and tortured my own family. I am the only survivor of the Madison family. My Scarlet was gone the day she abandoned herself and her name, and eventually like Draken became the infamous Red Blood Witch. The couple couldn't look but remain helpless, so it was not only Issei that had gone evil, but Scarlet as well. They wondered who else had gone evil. He looked at the others on thinking on what should be done. It soon clicked that the John near Juniper is from a different world. Scene change. Shattered Kingdom Bar, surface, 10:30 p.m. Issei was roaming around the bar that was owned by the rebellion, one of the many establishments that are meant for their funding purposes. He was looking for Willow, and was with John as several were discussing looking at Issei. Many were noting him to be identical to Draken. As John spoke, "You will get used to it, when I first came here, even many were talking about how I was once the deceased prince. And how I came back to life, same could be said for Scarlet and the others as well. Right?" Issei spoke as he continued, "So where are the others?" "There." John pointed out to see several people in armor. These were Scarlet Madison, Yoji Itami, Lily Ironblooded and Hizuru Minakata. "Eyes, over here," John called out to them as they all looked towards the duo, surprised to see an Issei here. They looked towards Issei as they all walked towards him. Lily Ironblooded of Universe 9905 is sporting standard Phase 2 clone trooper armor that is black in color with grey markings. She is armed with a heavy backpack, a satchel slung over her chest, ammo pouches by her waist, small pouches on her arms, and a holster armed with medium pouches on her thighs. Additionally, she added extra armor to her shoulders, shins and arms, with a sheath for her vibro blades on both wrists. Her helmet is equipped with a rangefinder and macrobinoculars, with her visor being red. Yoji Itami of Universe 9905 is sporting standard Phase 2 armor that is colored with dark green and black markings. He has suspenders that connect to his belt, which has ammo pouches on it, a miniature backpack outfitted with a communicator and antenna. Small pouches on his arms, a sheath for his vibro knife on his wrist, holsters and medium pouches on his thighs, and extra armor that is painted black on his shins. Scarlet Madison of Universe 9905 is sporting standard Phase 2 armor that is blue with red markings and has a cape with a hood on by her neck. She adorns blaster holsters on her thighs, sheaths on her left and right wrist, small pouches on both of her arms, a bandolier going from the left side of her chest to the right side of her waist, and a backpack. Hizuru Minakata of Universe 9905 is sporting standard Phase 2 armor with dark blue and black markings. She is armed with macrobinoculars on her helmet, extra ammunition on her belt, blaster holsters armed with medium pouches on her thighs, extra armor on her shins that are painted dark blue, a sheath for their vibro knife on her left wrist, small pouches on both of her arms, a large pouch satchel slung over her chest, and a blaster holder, which also holds a mace, on her back. "So you must be the talk of the rebellion, one of the Isseis showing up here. Yo, you don't seem like much." Lily spoke with a mocking tone as Issei rolled his eyes and responded, "Yeah, that's me. Never thought I would have gained quite the reputation here. After what Draken had done, it is a surprise that they didn't attack you on sight for just looking like Draken. I mean, the resemblance between the two of you is kind of uncanny." Yoji commented, to which Hizuru spoke in agreement, "Yep, it is a good thing that you are on our side. So what do you plan on doing?" "Truth be told, I want to warn my universe of Draken. His intention is to invade the multiverse and make it into his own dystopia." Scarlet responded in agreement, "Yeah, that does not surprise me. He does want to bring in despair and death everywhere, and from what Willow had informed us, I think that is out to be true." "So is it true? Did you actually marry John's mother?" Yoji asked as John gave him a glare, to which Issei showed the ring, making everyone surprised as Yoji spoke, "Guess John can call you now." Yoji was unable to finish as John landed a blow to Yoji's stomach, almost making him cough up. He held his stomach in pain as Issei responded, "No, it's alright if he doesn't. Anyway, John, did you tell them about yours and Scarlet's relationship in my world?" Scarlet was intrigued as John did not respond, making her ask, "What happened? Is she like this world, Scarlet?" Scarlet asked out of curiosity as even the others were curious as well, only John was not curious as he knew the truth. "Oh no," Issei responded. John wanted him to stop, but it was too late as Issei spoke with a low tone, "Scarlet is actually pregnant of my universe, and it is John's baby." There was nothing but silence amongst the group as Scarlet became beet red, although she did not show it under her armor. She was in a blushing mess as her hair color matched that of her face. She immediately rushed outside of the room as John spoke, "Scarlet." John rushed behind her while speaking, "Wait, I can explain." John rushed behind her as Lily spoke while shaking her head, "I am not surprised, this was meant to be inevitable." "You mean to say that you knew about this?" Lily nodded as she spoke, "Yep, I can sense John's scent on Scarlet, and I am one of the few that knew about it. Honestly, those two are a couple of horn dogs. We should probably go and check on them." Hizuru spoke as they all nodded and left with Ferlin speaking, "It was nice talking to you." Issei nodded, having an amused smile on his face, before he heard someone speak. Willow, I can't give you any more alcohol. You are already past your limit. The one who spoke was Hazel Reinhardt, one of the survivors of Draken's attacks. Both Tyrion and Arthur Watts were killed by Draken during his invasion of the Four Kingdoms alongside Salem, who he was able to kill much to her shock and surprise. The Grim Queen, for the first time in her life, felt true fear in the form of Lord Draken. Issei walked towards her and spoke, I will take her from here. Hazel was stunned seeing him here. He never knew that there would be an Issei here. He remembered on how Draken massacred his friends right in front of him. He remembered the rumors and the words of Issei Hyoudou being here, but he never thought he would be seeing him in person. No, I will be fine. Hazel, pass me another rum. I need one more drink. Hazel snapped out of her shock and felt helpless as he watched Willow delve further into alcoholism. She was a shadow of her former self. Issei looked at Hazel and spoke. I will handle it. Leave it to me, Hazel. Hazel nodded as he spoke. Right. Issei spoke as he wraps her arm around his shoulder as she demanded in a low tone, leave me alone. No can do, your condition is getting from bad to worse, and I don't intend to abandon my mentor in any way. Willow could only look at him as he placed her on a chair and sat opposite to her. Willow, listen to me. No, I don't want to. After what both of you went through, I feel even more ashamed of myself that I couldn't see what you were going through. I always knew that you had a rough life, but I never thought it was this bad. I blame myself, Issei. It is all my fault. Had I seen this, none of this would have happened. I wouldn't have left you alone. You wouldn't have been tortured and many wouldn't have died. Even and was killed by Draken, and it is all my fault. Willow screamed her heart out as Issei became wide-eyed. He was shocked to hear that Draken even killed in as well, as he asked, what do you mean killin', sensei? I can explain that. Issei turned around to see James Ironwood of Draken's World as he spoke, and was killed after the invasion of Arcadia. He had hunted her down and defeated her. She was powerless against him once he used the Infinity Stones to override her control of the Makluan rings. He was also able to overpower her in sword combat, despite not training as much as he was supposed to in the 10 stances. He soon cornered her and mocked her for being gullible and weak, much to her anger and sadness. But he did not stop there. He captured her students and killed them one by one in front of her eyes, all the while making sure she remains alive. He soon captured and killed her husband Lee and her daughter Xiu, and killed them in front of her eyes. Despite in begging and pleading for their lives, he killed them all. And was heartbroken, but that doesn't even compare to what he did to Lai Ren, her son, whom he managed to locate and hunt down. He eventually killed him as well, as Anne lost any and all hope in her eyes. She was soon slaughtered and the rings, they were given to one of Draken's generals, Adam Taurus. Issei was shocked at this, as he also had tears fall from his eyes. He clenched his fists in anger and hatred. He hated that even and wasn't spared, which meant that this world's Juniper was still out there, but nobody knows where she is. He looked at Willow, who was crying. She had lost everything and everyone. He walked towards her and hugged her as he spoke. Please, do not blame yourself. You are not at fault for what Draken has become, you never were. But Willow tried to speak as he responded, no Willow, you couldn't have done anything until it was too late, but we need to stop him. In my world, even after you went, we trained constantly, no matter what happens. You were always by my side, along with Mayan, my Juniper and my friends and family. Draken had no one, and he was broken by Carmilla and betrayed by Juniper. I am not sure if there is hope for him, but we have to fight, and I would love it if my mentor, the first person who saw potential in me, to fight alongside me. You really believe in me that much? Willow asked with a shaky tone as he spoke. I do, you were and will always be my first teacher. I remember on how you came for both of my graduations and congratulated me. I know what he did to you, but the Willow I know wouldn't give up, not like this. We have to stop Draken, and I would love if this Willow would also fight alongside me. Issei gave a smile to her, which reminded her of a smile her Issei used to give when she was with him. His smile was bright, despite being fake. However, the smile she saw was genuine, but was still bright like it always was. She couldn't help but tear up as she cried onto Issei, with him rubbing her head back. He was calming and consoling her. She had lost almost everything thanks to Draken, and yet she is still fighting. She still has hope in her eyes. As soon was watching him, this was revealed to be Holly and Juniper, both of whom decided to leave the master and student pair alone. However, a voice shocked them all to the core as it spoke. Drinking as usual, why I am not surprised. Everyone turned around to see none other than Draken having a can of Diet Coke standing a few feet away from him as he threw it in the dustbin and spoke, guess, I finally found you, my lesser version. Willow immediately got in front of him and readied her katana to face against him. She had an idea on how Draken was able to find their base. How did you? Issei became alerted to this as Juniper also joined in with anger on his face. Issei looked at his gear for a moment and spoke, so you used the sacred gear system to track my gear. Yes, you are smarter than what you seem. Issei had a scowl on his face as Willow spoke, look at your counterpart, you can still turn back to who you once were. What would Persephone and the others think about you? Would they want their act like this? Tell me, Draken. Draken gritted his teeth anger as he glared at her and responded angrily, Issei is long dead. Well, you were pretending to be Gel's wife. I was killed by your kingdom and the Black Arms. You didn't kill me, they did, yet here you are beating yourself up. How pathetic. Never thought the legendary Sephiroth would become like this. Willow couldn't meet her gaze towards him as Juniper spoke. You have room to talk. If Nyx or Mocha come to know what you have done, they would hate themselves for being the reason you became the way you are. They would be afraid and to test you for what you have become. Draken clenched his fists and responded, like you have room to talk. You and the faction leaders are the root cause of my suffering, and since this world wants to give me as much suffering, I shall also do the same. It matters not. John and the others had also joined in as they had their weapons aimed at Draken, who merely lost his anger and smirked as he spoke, go ahead, it is not like those toys would do much. As long as it can leave a dent on your face, that is more than enough. Scumbag. Lily spoke angrily, remembering on what her counterpart had suffered as he spoke. Maybe I should let you meet your counterpart, or better, one of the counterparts of the 1-5, you must love reunions, don't you, Lily? Same could be said for the rest of you. The 5 were gritting their teeth in anger as Draken spoke, and besides, I am not here to fight, since my army is heading to this location soon enough. I am here to show you true despair. What the hell does that mean? Issei asked angrily as Draken only smirked as a magic circle opened up, revealing an armored figure with a sword and a shield. As Willow scowled seeing her, it was the Supreme General of Draken's army. So you decided to bring the Supreme General here, haven't you, Draken? Willow spoke with anger in her eyes as Draken responded, I have, but that is not why I really brought here. Supreme General, remove your helmet, show the rebellion on who you really are. The Supreme General nodded as they removed their helmet as brownish golden hair was revealed. No sooner than they saw the person and hair, they immediately became pale as John spoke with horror and terror, no way. The Supreme General is. Willow spoke, adding to her shock and terror as Juniper was horrified to see what she was witnessing. There was no way this could be true. She hated what she was witnessing the most, and realizing who the Supreme General really is, the same person that she heard slaughter many Arcadians that opposed Draken. The Supreme General herself was described to be a brownish golden hair woman with blue eyes, however upon closer inspection, she had a lost look on her face. Her look was akin to someone begging to be rescued. Is Juniper Arc? Issei ended the statement with horror as Draken was cackling with happiness. He enjoyed seeing the look of horror in the eyes of his enemies and was going to savor the moment where the one former Empress of Arcadia would again slaughter her own people. S2 Chapter 11. Supreme General of Despair. Everyone looked towards the Supreme General in shock and terror. Willow gritted her teeth in anger seeing the situation herself. John spoke with total and utter disbelief. This cannot be true, Mom would never do this, she would never kill her own people without any mercy or empathy. I refuse to believe this to be true. John spoke with total and utter disbelief as Draken only laughed, angering some of the people present even further. Will Juniper Draken could only remain silent. She remembered on how Draken made her into the woman she is today, and she no longer could feel anything, no emotion at all. Despite this, her expression was that of a woman that was begging to be freed from this monster, even if it meant killing her. As long as she was away from him, it would be better. It is. She has been the Supreme General this whole time, and none of you could even figure it out. Even you, Willow, you failed to see that Juniper of your world was the same person that slaughtered many of your forces. She has served me quite well with her loyalty. Eliminating anyone that stands against me, anyone that stands against my rule. Issei looked at him in anger as he clenched his fists in pure fury. He vowed to make Draken pay for everything he had done. Let me tell you how I was able to turn this gullible moron into something more productive. Draken spoke as he put his hand on her chin as he looked towards Juniper and Issei of Arcadia, who all looked in shock and horror. All of them remained speechless as Willow spoke. So this is where you have been, sticking up to his side. Never thought you would be like the others that you once despised. Juniper. Willow spoke with anger in her voice. She never would have imagined Juniper turning in the same person that she despised with all of her heart. Juniper Draken could only flinch as she couldn't even respond. Draken then explained. Oh Sephiroth, don't blame her for everything. I made her into the person who she is always meant to be. The perfect Arcadian hunter, just like I am the perfect Arc hunter. She has killed her own people, in cold blood. Anyone I opposed, she slaughtered them without any mercy. She has been everything that I always wanted her to be, everything that I always desired to be, and some right methods can do quite the trick. Willow backed away. She had lost both of her friends. Having an idea on what methods Draken was talking about, she was terrified to know that he really wanted her to suffer for what she had done. He soon turned to see Issei and Juniper of Arcadia as he spoke. Yep, you can see it, don't you? She is my Juniper. You must be wondering how did she become like this. She is the last Arc, the others, they are long dead. I personally killed them, but for her, I did something different. Does the name Carmilla Leichenberg sound familiar? The two became horrified as they turned a glance to Willow, who was gritting her teeth in anger. Everyone knew what Draken did to Juniper, and they had no words. It does good I used her methods, destroyed any and all hope she had in her head about defeating me, and made her into my puppet slave. Unlike you who married this bitch, I broke this bitch, turned her into my personal general that kills her own people when I ask her to, like a perfect efficient pawn. She has been doing a very good job so far. I put hallucinations of me killing her family in front of her eyes and torturing her physically, the same torture I went through. This pathetic woman couldn't even survive for even 2 months. I managed to broke her, and now, she serves me, killing all those that I want dead, even if it is her own people and friends. Draken spoke with a cackle as Juniper remains completely emotionless. You sick bastard, Issei shouted with anger and fury, as Draken could only look at him with an amused grin. As he spoke, you are right, I am a sick bastard, but think of me as far worse than he is. Draken readied his powers and transformed into his balance breaker, which released tremendous aura, as many were on the edge. Even Issei was on the edge himself, but Juniper stepped forward and spoke angrily. We will stop you, Draken, for the sake of my family and my universe, I won't let you harm anyone ever again. Juniper declared as she continued, you may have suffered, you may have gone through a lot, but that will never excuse your actions. The abhorrent actions you have perpetrated, the wanton slaughter of millions for your amusement, and the display of power and tyranny, will find no sanctuary in the annals of history. Entire civilizations, once vibrant and resplendent, have been laid to waste by your hand. But today marks the culmination of your reign of terror. But not anymore, you shall no longer inflict harm upon another soul. No innocent being shall succumb to your tyrannical rule. This madness that has plagued this realm shall cease this very day, Juniper declared with anger in her voice as she entered into her armor. As everyone started to rally in agreement, even if she is not their Juniper, she still is the Empress of Arcadia. She won't let him rule another day. Juniper Draken flinched for a moment, seeing her counterpart as a tear fell from her eyes. Willow was the next to speak. This Juniper is right, we still have a chance to fight. Unlike those on your side, we haven't lost our fighting spirit. We fight for a reason, to fight for a better world. Our world is broken, but not broken beyond repair. There is still hope, and this Issei made me see it. You may not believe in me, but this Issei still does, and there is no way. Willow releases her wing and readies herself. We are giving up. Draken. Everyone was getting even more motivated, ready to fight. Issei was the next to walk forward, as he was the next to speak. Of all the Isseis I have met across the multiverse, we have one thing, Draken. We always fight for what we believe in, we always fight for a cause, a just cause. No matter the methods, and we are darn persistent at that. We won't give up, not without a fight, and unlike you, we will never break. No matter how many times you torment us, cause we have a reason to fight, and that is to protect and love the people we care about, and we will keep fighting, till the very end. Issei then brought out his boosted gear and spoke. Balance breaker beyond Drag announced with strength and valor. He was not going to let this demented mirror version of Issei continue for much longer. Welsh Dragon Balance breaker. Full power. Issei's words were the final nail in the coffin as many cheered in response. Yeah, we chose to fight against your tyranny, another shouted as they kept speaking. We will never let you win. Draken couldn't help but gritted his teeth in anger as he spoke while glaring at them. He hated seeing hope in them. As he spoke, I see. You think you can stop me? Well then you won't be the first to try, and certainly not the last one. In that case, come at me, let me show you my despair and hatred, let's see if it conquers your love, hope and happiness. Draken readied himself to clash with all the three members as he gave a glance to Juniper Draken, with the duo getting ready to fight. The three charged at Draken, who had brought out his Excalibur. However, unlike the one that Issei commonly uses, Draken's Excalibur, also nicknamed Excalibur Morgan, it was a dark blade with red runic inscriptions on it and held a darkened aura. Along with Jizo Mitama. Seems like even the sword is corrupted by your fall, Draken. Issei retorted, to which Draken spoke, indeed, after all I am everything that you despise and detest. Issei blocked a clash as Juniper and Willow ambushed him from two different ends, one holding her spear and the other holding Masamune. Draken acted quickly. He first kicked Issei, pushing him back, and blocked the two with his blades. As he spoke, not bad. But not good enough. Draken's sword started to glow as he pushes the two behind, causing them to catch up with Issei. He grinned as the blades were surging with a black glow, with lightning crackling from both of them, while Juniper Draken fought against the rest, including those from Universe 9905. Mother, please snap out of it, John shouted as Lily and the others fired their weapons upon her, who just stood there and took it. However, when the dust settled, Juniper Draken was unaffected as she turned her attention towards Lily as she grabbed her by the armor and sent her flying. Quickly gathering her sword, she slashed at Tommy, who blocked it with his weapon, as she kept slashing as Scarlet and Hyoudou kept firing at her. They were also joined by Hazel, who unleashed a strong light slashed as Juniper Draken was relentless. Tommy then shouted. I can't hold on for much longer, Itami shouted as Holly acted quickly and used Psi elemental magic to surround her with an energy field as she activated orbs of explosion magic to damage Juniper Draken, which sent her flying. Are you okay? Holly asked Itami, to which he gave a nod and spoke, for someone that is possessed, she certainly knows how to fight well. Fortunately this should be enough to handle some more blows. Holly responded in kind, yeah. Still can't believe that Draken managed to get his hands and turn the Empress into one of his puppets. The same woman that would once never bend the knee to any enemy is now bending to her worst enemy. Draken is really something. Holly gritted her teeth in anger as she generated 2 light blades as Juniper Draken charged at her, with Holly struggling to push her behind as Itami and Lily kept firing their shots at her. Hazel then shouted, "Don't put up, we can't flatter, if the Empress is still in there, we can stop her," Hazel shouted as John, who was now in his primed form, spoke. Indeed, Mother would never fall to this extent and do this willingly, she can still be saved from Draken's control. Juniper Draken stopped for a moment and a tear fell from her eye, which dropped from her helmet before she charged back at the group, unleashing a storming blow that sent them all flying. John noticed the drop of tear her helmet and understood what he had to do. He had to find a way to stop her. He gave a glance to Scarlet and his team along with Hazel, charged their strongest elemental attacks towards them, with John unleashing a strong hellfire attack towards his mother's alternate. Lily doing it with light claws, Scarlet with nuclear, Itami doing with gravity, Hazel doing a light slash, Holly using both psi, nuclear and telekinesis, the latter to bind her and Hyoudou with time. The attack caused a huge explosion that shattered the tables and damaged some of the walls surrounding it. However, when the dust settled, it only revealed some of her armor had tattered, aside from that she was barely harmed. John spoke in shock. "No." John added as Scarlet responded, "This is impossible." She then charged her hands, unleashing blasts of nuclear, explosive and dragon fire magic as she unleashed it onto them. A huge explosion erupted in the bar because of the immense power. As Itami, Scarlet, Hyoudou and Lily were on the ground, their armor was damaged and were unmasked. They were groaning in pain. Scarlet, Holly shouted, even she was critically injured as she crawled towards her sister, her armor was partially torn. She desperately hoped that her sister was alright. John too was on the ground, his armor was completely destroyed by Juniper Draken as he stood up trying to defend his team. He was breathing heavily as he looked at Hazel, who was critically injured and passed out completely. "I won't falter." John spoke as he readied his blade. Despite him staggering, he was not going to fall down that easily. Back with Issei, Willow and Juniper, they were fighting against Draken as he unleashed a barrage of lightning at them, causing them to narrowly evade their attacks. Draken charged at them as he entered into Diabolo's dragon Darkdecade, which was like Issei's own Diabolo's dragon, but except it was black with red gems, similar to his balance breaker. Diabolo's dragon Dark Draken released even more aura as Issei spoke using his own Diabolo's dragon. They both clashed, creating massive shockwaves as Juniper joined in as well, with Willow in her safer form. She responded by unleashing multiple light blasts as Juniper used her dragon fire to assist him. The attacks collided upon Draken, who was barely injured. Issei uses his own 2 cannons as he unleashes Infinite Blaster on him, boosting several times. With Juniper using a very potent beam attack towards Draken as she used her supernova, trapping Draken into a pocket dimension and making the universe explode on him. But when the dust settled, Draken was barely affected as he spoke. "Nice try." Draken unleashed a massive energy blast towards them as Willow deflected them with ease with her Masamune as Issei brought out his Excalibur and his own Jizo Mitama. He soon dashed towards him as Draken blocked Willow's Masamune with his wings as he blocked both Issei's 2 blades as Draken responded with a point-blank energy blast towards him, which caused him to back away. Turning his attention to Willow, he unleashed a corruption strike towards Willow, which forced her to block. Seeing this opportunity, as Draken unleashed several cannons towards Willow from all directions, forcing her to use multiple barriers to protect herself, but Draken internally grinned. Penetrate. The attack bypassed Willow's barriers as she screamed in pain from the multiple attacks. Juniper looked in horror along with Issei as they dashed towards Draken to block them from attacking Willow. Draken acted quickly as he constantly slashed Juniper's armor over and over, again causing it to start withering, much to her shock, as he soon followed it up with a beam blast, causing Juniper to narrowly evade the attack. Issei meanwhile slashed 2 of his cannons as it reduced the power, allowing Willow to counter the attacks as she used her own flame magic to block the beam attacks. Willow soon unleashed a fire whirl as Draken soon decided to respond by using Annihilation Smasher. Annihilation Smasher. Draken responded, which caused another explosion as he quickly acted and unleashed his own nuclear elemental blast towards Juniper and Willow, who blocked it with their own attacks as Draken added more pressure by unleashing his own Infinity Blaster towards them as Issei came between them and used his own Infinity Blaster towards him. Juniper and Willow dropped their barriers as they used their own magic attacks, with Juniper using flame magic and Willow using dragon slayer magic. As she used her attack upon him as they managed to push Draken behind, he knew what he had to do and used even more boosts and used his icon powers, primarily corrupted Urfit and Auden, which started to reverse the effects as it damaged all three of them, causing a massive explosion overwhelming the three with relative ease. Juniper and Willow were on the ground as Juniper's armor was starting to fall off as she got up but staggered. Willow had lost her safer form and returned to her current self. They wondered where Issei was as they were met with a horrifying sight. Draken was holding Issei hostage, both in their armors, with his Excalibur aimed at his throat. "No." Juniper spoke in with horror as Willow could only watch helplessly. Draken then spoke. "So, it seems like your hope and love couldn't match my despair." Draken snatched one of Issei's armor's gems as he spoke. "It is time to end the hope." Draken pushed Issei forward as he slashed him from behind with Jizo Matama. The corrupted blade critically damaged his Diabolo's dragon armor as sparks were flying all over the location. Juniper and Willow gasped with horror, the former having tears in her eyes, seeing her lover and husband being struck down like this. Issei faltered and staggered to the ground, his two swords falling to the ground with a thud. Issei lost his armor completely as a shockwave sent all of them staggering backwards. Draken looked at Issei's fate with a smirk as he looked towards the gem with a dark grin. This was exactly what he needed to completely send his armies to Issei's own world. "No!" Juniper shouted as she rushed towards Issei, with Willow soon joining in. Seeing Issei's bad condition, he was tattered and bruised with a fatal back wound and several more wounds that brought him to a near-death state. She desperately tried to heal his wounds, alongside Willow, who also did not want to lose her student again. He was out cold from the attack, groaning and crying in pain. "It's over." Draken spoke as he commanded, "Supreme General." Juniper Draken looked towards him as she had already lifted John in the air. She soon dropped him and dashed towards Draken as he had spoken. "We have already gained the key. We couldn't travel completely to Issei's world, but now we can." Juniper Draken nodded as he had spoken. "Finish these rebels and make sure they don't bother me." He soon contacted another general who nodded in agreement as soon enough, a figure arrived. She was described to be a white-haired female with pale eyes. She wore a full-body armored suit and she wore a small vest-like part. This was Sefaria Sarasel-Bells, an Eevee from the race of Eevee Edeld. "General Sarasel-Bells, make sure that you and Supreme General eliminate these people so that they don't pose a problem." Sefaria nodded as she spoke. "As you wish, Lord Draken." Sefaria turned her gaze to the beaten-up rebels. In this reality, Sefaria is the lone survivor of Draken's purge of the Eevee race. The reason was because her core was not completely destroyed, and Draken found this out as he actually sensed her being alive. It turns out she was one of the few creations who was programmed to be a younger sister of Rigolziva and Malvazoa. He decided to see on how he can make her loyal to him as he altered small bits of her programming and made her truly loyal to him. An Eevee is a race of mechanical lifeforms hailing from the planet Eevee Edeld. They are malevolent and wicked, wanting to conquer and destroy everything. Sefaria was one of them and was the younger sister of Rigolziva and Malvazoa. Yes, in the past, the race attacked Arcadia, but were fortunately unsuccessful. In her full power, she can take down Draken's world Scarlet Madison and can even give Draken's world Adam a run for his money. They are almost on par with each other. The only ones that can beat are Draken himself and Juniper Supreme General. "We will meet again, if you survive." Draken spoke with a cackle as he teleported out of there. He would meet them again soon. Juniper looked towards John, seeing him as the only one standing. The attack ended up badly, and now they had to deal with Sefaria and Juniper Draken at the same time. Scene change. Draken's castle, dimensional teleporter, 1 AM. Draken had teleported back to his castle as Adam, Scarlet and another person had bowed before him. She was described to be a beautiful white-haired woman with red eyes and had long open hair. She wore futuristic armor and had 2 devil wings. This was Graphia Lucifuge. She looked completely different than her usual maid costume, but still retained her cold and serious expression. This Graphia was different from the one of different universes. While she did have the same past as the original Graphia, with her going through the Devil's Civil War and marrying Surziches and had Milikas. She was also manipulated by Dai and was turned against Issei like many others. However, when Issei, now Draken, invaded the Earth and started killing many innocent civilians and destroying the devils, Graphia was one of the people that opposed him. However, Draken managed to capture and subdue her with relative ease. She was barely a threat. But instead of killing her in return, Draken had a sinister idea. He basically found Graphia's original soul and sealed it away, making it into a broken shell of herself, and replaced her with a version of herself that was completely loyal to Draken. Using this Graphia, he controlled her to unleash dangerous levels of havoc and destruction across the devils and other supernatural resistance, alongside the rest of Draken's army. He even made her kill her own son, Milikas. My Lord Graphia bowed before her lord along with Scarlet and Adam, as he had spoken. Rise, all of you, Draken had spoken, as he continued to speak, in a day's time, we will invade their world. I would like you to call all my generals, wherever they are, prepare my forces. It is time for a full-scale invasion of that world. As you wish, Lord Draken. Graphia spoke with enthusiasm as she and the other two generals teleported out of there. Draken looks towards a certain four-legged beast that had come. This was Cyber Krynos, formerly known as Lily Ironblooded of Draken's world. She looked like a four-legged canine being, almost akin to a wolf. She had cybernetic armor on her, as well as a plasma repeater was on her back. In this reality, while Draken did kill Lily at first, she was revived much to her surprise. However, her revival was nothing but eternal torment, as Draken had her tortured and broken beyond belief, as she desperately begged and requested her tormentors to stop torturing her. However, to no avail, and like many of the victims, she broke. This causes her to be forever stuck in her Krynos 4 and is a terrifying bioweapon and tracker. Mentally, Lily is gone, all there is left is the beast forever collared to her new master. Draken is her new master, she is treated well if she does her job well, and if disobeyed, she will be punished. Cyber Krynos walked towards her as she stayed by Draken's side as he had spoken, now that's a good little girl, are you ready to slaughter some Arcadians? Oh woo. Cyber Krynos howled in response as Draken spoke with a dark grin, excellent, we will have a lot of fun when we enter into his world. Scene change. Juniper and Willow were clashing against Juniper, Draken and Sefaria, who were both powerful foes. She had made sure to put a healing dome around Issei that will keep him alive till she has found a way. You should be ashamed of even fighting for him, I can't believe I am seeing myself harm my own people. Juniper. Draken did not respond and unleashed a point-blank lightning strike, which she narrowly dodged, as Sefaria unleashed multiple mechanical tendrils towards Willow as she slashed all of them at once. Juniper had to end this fight quickly and she knew how to do it. Flashback. Juniper was training with Narid Kiri, she tried to continue to use its power, but she was unable to strengthen Issei's abilities as she gave a tired sigh. Issei. I can't do this. Issei shook his head as he spoke, no, you have activated and unlocked Narid Kiri, but you are not using it all. What do you mean by that? Juniper asked with an exhausted tone as she spoke, I have been using my magic to strengthen you, but it never came from my gear. No, to use the gear, you need to sing while activating your gear, Juniper. Juniper looked at him dumbfounded as she asked, sing? Yep, you heard me right, you had to sing in order to use your gear. Juniper looked at him for a moment and spoke, no Ice, I am not that much good of a singer. Come on, I never heard you sing, can't you give it a shot? Juniper looked at him for a moment as she spoke, no. I don't think I can sing, at least not in front of an audience. Juniper spoke while turning her gaze away while having a red tint, she was embarrassed to sing, afraid that they may hate her voice. She mostly sang for fun, but when it was behind closed doors. Issei could only shake his head as he spoke, it's fine, I can understand if you are a bit embarrassed, it is not like we need it for an emergency, so you can take your time and learn to sing. Juniper could only nod, she did not want to embarrass herself potentially while she sings, she could only hope that she can learn to sing properly in the future. Flashback ends. Juniper took a glance to Issei and John, who were barely alive as she spoke, this time, I will save you. Closing her eyes, she kicked her counterpart away as she summoned her Narid Kiri, her eyes change from brown and starts to glow in a lavender color as the area around her is enveloped in lavender light particles. She starts to use magic to put in a music from an opening of an anime John used to watch. Juniper starts to sing, not caring for embarrassing herself, her son and her lover are under danger, and she would be damned if she did not save him. I'm sure only one more time, a miracle will occur in the twisted future you draw out with your kind voice. Juniper. Draken stops completely, the effects of Narid Kiri were reaching to her, and Juniper was able to stop her counterpart. For the sake of making a world where no one cries, I scream out a prayer that doesn't reach anywhere and disappears. John feels himself strengthened, he looked at his mother who gave a glance as she smiles continuing to sing. Into the contaminated red sky, throwing away all mercy. John readied his Earthit powers, once again regaining the strength to fight as he joins Willow, who starts to overwhelm Sefaria, much to her anger. The light of the beautiful moon sinks down to the beginning, far beyond the sky. Juniper. Draken stops for a moment as some tears fall from her eyes, she starts to remember what is going on. And into your grieving eyes. I still reach my hand. Even further. Believe in the grief you feel. Juniper stops for a while, which causes Juniper Draken to snap out of it as she continues to clashes against her Draken counterpart as sparks fall from each strike. Juniper dodges the attacks gracefully as she follows up with a punch to her stomach pushing her behind, she then continues to sing, realizing it is not enough to subdue her counterpart. In actuality, everyone wants to be saved and their wandering hearts pierce a hole in the sky. She watched her counterpart holding her head in pain, she knew she had to keep singing and it was getting fun for her. If I choose you, and if we can search for a happiness just for the two of us. It doesn't matter if freezing flames burn my body. Sefaria tried to stop Juniper, but both Willow and John were not letting that happen as they kept attacking her, pushing her back as the general desperately tries to stop her. I am near a smile. Juniper kept singing as she unleashed some beam magic to prevent her counterpart from escaping. She knew that she had to keep her in check. The beam pushed her back as she no longer could show fear, not when her loved ones were in danger. The writhing dream is the meaning of my life. I want to return this frightened world into the depths of the water from whence it came. She gave a glance to Issei, who was starting to recover even more as she had to continue singing. Sadness is the only thing I will not erase. I will even cut through that kind of person's reasoning with these two hands of mine. Juniper saw her counterpart starting to get dizzy. It was close to end this. Down to zero we go. Juniper decided to give one last push. She continued to sing as she gave a glance to John and Willow, who were both pushing Sefaria back, who tried to teleport, but they were not going to let that happen. The light of the beautiful moon, just silently, falls into ruin into the beginning. Juniper Draken's vision was getting blurry. She couldn't continue to remain in a fighting position as she soon collapsed to the ground, dizzy and tired. This admiration I have locked away still reaches far away into the darkness. Juniper ended the song with a smile as she looked around to see Juniper Draken on the ground asleep as Willow managed to slash Sefaria as she fell on the ground, completely knocked out. All the days I spent alive with you. Our gentle song. She soon deactivated the gear and rushed towards Issei as she spoke, please stay with me. We need to take him to the hospital. We have an emergency room that can give him full body treatment. His injuries are severe. Willow had spoken with a serious tone as John spoke with an assurance, trust me, it is outfitted with the latest Arcadian technology. Issei will be fine. Juniper took her glance at her counterpart and Sefaria as Willow answered it to her, we will put them in maximum security prisons, but for now, we must get Issei to safety. Right. Juniper lifted Issei up with Willow taking in both Juniper Draken and Sefaria as she teleported them out of there. Scene change. Shattered Kingdom Base, 4 AM. Juniper was looking at the operational theater as she was waiting for him to come out. She was praying to to let Issei survive the brutal assault that Draken had put him through as John walked to her and spoke. Hey mom. Juniper turned her gaze towards John as he looked at the theater and spoke, he is still being operated I presume. Yeah. How's your team and the others? John looked at her and spoke, they are getting treatment, fortunately, they are all awake. That's good to hear. Juniper spoke with a smile as John asked, you really care for him, don't you? John asked, to which Juniper added, I do John, he has done many things for me that I wouldn't even wish for. Unlike that Nicholas, who only saw me as a pawn, Ice never had such an intention. I mean, I wouldn't even be the same if it was not for him. I would still be in a much worse state, right? Your version. Or I should say your universe's version of Juniper is still suffering from the side effects of his betrayal, right? John could only look down as he spoke. Yeah, I recall from grandmother on how devastated she was. She told me that mom was crying on days on end. She wasn't able to sleep and was barely able to keep up with what was happening while Nicholas was out there killing my people. She was a pawn to his own means and ends. He never cared for her and my mother was more than happy to kill him for good. But even the aftermath of what happened still lingers. Juniper nodded. None of this was false when it came to Nicholas's actions. But she was in a much better state thanks to Issei, and she was eternally grateful for it. She looked at the screen as John spoke. You should probably head to sleep. John spoke with concern as Juniper responded, no, I hardly feel any sleep. You should head off, someone needs to check on him. John tried to respond, but Juniper beat him to it. I am fine John, you need sleep more than I do, and so does your team. Even if we have captured the Supreme General and Sefaria, we still have the others to deal with, and worse Draken himself. You need to be ready. John only nodded as he headed towards one of the bunker beds to rest, as soon after a while, the operating theater closed and Juniper got up as the doctor walked outside. As he spoke, Your Highness, the Red Dragon Emperor is out of any danger and he is awake as we speak. You can speak to him. Juniper breathed a sigh of relief as they rushed inside to see Issei lying on the bed. There were massive stitches and wounds as he got up to see Juniper with tears in her eyes as he spoke. Hey Junie, Juniper did not let him completely as she rushed towards Issei and gave him a strong hug as she did not want to let go of him. She feared losing him again. I must have worried you a lot, haven't I? Juniper only looked at him and spoke with an annoyed tone. Idiot. You worried me so much. Hey, but I am fine. Se, alive and well. Issei spoke with an assuring tone as Juniper could only look him in the eye and nod as she spoke, it's good that you survived what Draken has planned and we did manage to capture two of his most important people. Wait, how? Issei asked, to which Juniper responded, I sang. You did? Issei asked, to which Juniper only gave a smile as he spoke. Holy shit, I missed that. John watched the scene with a smile. He soon walked outside knowing this version of his mother was in good hands. Soon enough, Willow came in with a worried tone and spoke something that made John wide-eyed. He rushed back alongside Willow as he spoke. Mom, Issei, I have some bad news. What happened? John. Juniper spoke, sensing John's worried tone as he spoke. An intel came from our spies. Draken plans on invading your universe. And we only have a day to prepare for what comes next. Issei and Juniper became horrified as they were now worried for their loved ones, as Draken wants to bring as much death and despair. Issei could only clench the sheets in anger. He knew he stood no chance against Draken, but he had to find a way to stop him, or else he and his family were done for. S2 Chapter 12. The Broken Empress. In the DxD world, Underworld, 9:30 am. Serziches was looking in the office with a grim expression on his face. He knew with what happened to die, and right now. He was kept in a sealed prison, in constant pain and agony. He remembered on each of the girls' fate. Riaz had locked herself in her room for days. She refused to come out even when her parents and other family members begged her to do so. He also remembered Akeno being completely emotionless for days and barely responding to anything. Her father was completely devastated. The Nekashu sisters Kaneko and Kuroka had no one to comfort themselves with as they hugged each other. Kuroka took it even harder as she became almost similar to her mother Fujimai, who chose a mate that never truly loved and cared for her. Roswis was even worse. She had her grandmother, but even then she had lost the one she had truly loved. She failed to see the real hero. Asia was calmed down by Aika. She lost both of her brothers, as Asia, like Riaz, stayed in her room for days. While Valerie looked in the mirror, she always thought Issei was the villain of her story, but it was Dai. It has always been Dai. Serapha only threw her figurines on the ground. It only brought back bad memories, and she hated that. Her show was cancelled, and its resuming was still unknown. Sona also was devastated. She had lost everything, and many were hating her and Riaz due to being primary pawns in performing what they had done against their real hero. Isaka's mental state was even more worse. She repeated the same mistake that she did with her old mate, and many Yaokais were wondering if she was fit for the leadership, while Kunu cried for days, knowing what kind of a person Dai was once she woke up. Zenobia and Irina locked themselves for days, with the latter completely falling from grace. As a result, she could no longer be a part of the angels, much to Michael's sadness. Griselda and Irina's parents could only look at the scene with completely helplessness. They could only curse Dai for being the one responsible for this. Gabriel cried for days and was constantly on the threat of turning into a fallen angel. Michael and the other angels had no choice but to make her lose all of her powers to prevent her from being a fallen angel. There was a special ritual that caused her to become a human being. Now she lives amongst humans. Now she was a person that would never love anyone and would constantly be under the guilt for what she had done. She had nothing left. Athena cried herself for days on end, almost to the point of becoming a fallen goddess. She had not only lost her father, but also Dai turned out to be a liar. She realized she was a disgrace in being the goddess of wisdom when she was nothing like that. She wanted to commit suicide but was stopped by Hephaestus. Kusha and Tsubaki were lost and become emotionless, despite help from their fellow peerage members. They were devastated for days, having nothing to fight for. However, she was not the worst that was affected. Ingvild took that cake. She cried for days on end, and she screamed with all her heart out in what happened. She refused to talk to anyone and had cried all day. She refused to eat or sleep, and as a result she had bags underneath her eyes and often appeared weak. It did not make it better that she was starting to once again have the sleeping sickness, and doctors state that there is a chance she may never wake up. The others tried to help the girls, but there was nothing they could do, and all they could do was blame Dai, but at the same time they were also equally. Now what? Serziches could only speak in a disbelieving tone, as soon enough Grafia came inside, as he asked, how are things? Milikas cried himself to sleep and Riaz is still the same. I still can't believe that he played us like a fiddle. The Au.RageRevan merch had to be destroyed, and we are the ones that are suffering. Serziches shook his head and spoke, it is our fault too, Grafia. Juniper is right. We are also to blame for what is to happen as well. So what now? Grafia asked, to which Serziches responded, we don't know. Shiva has backed away from the alliance, and with Zeus dead, Hera is in charge. From what I can tell, she wants revenge, although she won't tell us, but is too scared to even do it. He killed Zeus without much effort, and he can kill anyone. Not to mention, the other gods have refused to be associated with us any longer and have cut all ties. All the things that I have worked for is all crumbling to dust. Grafia could only approach him and spoke, so what should we do? I don't know, our only hope is that we can get through this without any more problems. Serziches spoke with a grim tone, as the hope for the factions is truly lost. In Draken's world, Shattered Kingdom Base, 4:30 am. You've got to be kidding me. Juniper spoke in a disbelieving tone, as she added, only 24 hours, that is all we have. Yes, I fear so. Your universe has only 24 hours. Draken is preparing a massive invasion fleet across several dimensions. Yours is the first on his list, but soon he will head to other universes. Issei could only clench the sheets of his hospital bed in anger as he spoke. We must warn my universe of what is to come. Issei tried to get up, but he soon faltered back due to the pain of his body. As he groaned in pain, Juniper looked at him and spoke with concern. Your wounds are bad, you are in no condition to fight or move as a matter of fact. But Juniper only held Issei tighter, making him yelp, ow ow ow, alright, you made your point, you can let go of me. Juniper only looked at him angrily, as Willow added, Juniper is right, not to mention Draken destroyed you in our fight, even us three working together couldn't stand a chance against him. Not to mention, his generals are also present, and I mean we may have captured the Supreme General and General Ceresabels, but there are still others left, and even General Taurus, someone who has almost killed two of my teammates without much effort. None of us would stand a chance for now. Issei could only grit his teeth in anger, as Willow added, for now you must rest and recover, can you walk? Haven't tried, but I can. Speaking of which, how is our prisoners doing? Issei asked, to which Willow spoke, Sefaria is trying her best to escape, but with the restraints that she has had, she cannot escape. Well, Juniper, or I should say my Juniper, has remained motionless without much movement. There are restraints, but she just has not moved at all. I still can't believe that it was Juniper behind that armor all this long, I never even realized this would be true. Willow spoke with sadness as John added, yeah, me too, Draken really did a number on her. I doubt she would even be the same person I knew. Not only Nicholas's actions broke her to huge extent. But Draken, he did something that Nicholas would never had done. He managed to break her even further. Juniper and the others could only remain silent. Issei held his wife's hand, assuring her that everything is fine. John could only watch with slight jealousy, wondering that what would have happened if Issei were to be his father instead of Nicholas, and on how his life would have been. He wouldn't admit it, but he was jealous of his counterpart. John also remembered on how mentally shattered his mother was, although she did not show it, she was broken for weeks due to what his so-called father had done, but seeing her here, like this, made him really happy but also jealous. Can we meet her? Issei asked, to which Willow spoke, you can, but I am not sure on how she would react. She has not responding to James, but she was not moving, almost catatonic, and I did not want to risk sending John or her counterpart on how she would react. Even when deplored, I did not want to risk it. That seems fair. Issei grunted in response. As he got up, he had his wounds on, including a patch on his back where his injury was, as Juniper spoke, easy. Issei nodded as he got his vest and wore it, as Willow advised him to not wear anything more for the time being. He then spoke, Willow, contact Jade. Tell them or inform them about the situation. If you can't convince them, call me and put me on the line. Right. Willow spoke, as Issei added, before you go, here. Issei summoned a small magic circle and Willow spoke, what is this? A communication circle. Juniper added as she spoke, it is a small communication circle, you should be able to contact us soon enough. I gave this circle to my universe's Jean and Juniper, it allows me to stay in touch with them, all you have to do is think about talking to me, and that is all. Issei spoke as he sent two communication circles, one towards John and the other towards Willow, as it went into their ear, as John spoke, kind of tingly. Issei nodded as he spoke, Willow, contact my counterparts. Here is the code for my universe. Issei gave a small paper that had the code for it. As he spoke, Draken would be distracted by the invasion. So we can have a chance, contact anyone and inform them about the situation. Understood. Leave that to me. Issei spoke as he continued, John with me, we will see your mother's counterpart. Right. John spoke as he looked towards Juniper and spoke, let's go. Juniper gave a nod as they all headed out, with Juniper keeping a glance on Issei. She knew that he was still injured, and he was nowhere near full strength and fighting against Draken or anyone as a matter of fact. Scene change, Shattered Kingdom holding cell, 5 AM. Issei, Juniper and John headed to the holding cell where they saw Sefaria in her restraints as she glared at Juniper with anger in her eyes. However, they ignored her, she was not their priority. They entered the holding cell of Juniper Draken. She looked hopelessly and was no longer in her armor and wore a prison jumpsuit, as John asked, is the brainwashing gone? Issei responded to him, I am not sure, all we know is that she has been remaining like that for hours, she did not respond to anything, and there are traces of her old self in there. She has been under Draken's control for more than 20 years. So, I am not sure if her old self is in there, but we will keep trying. I will go to her. Issei was about to head inside, but Juniper stopped him and spoke, that is a bad idea, if anything your very appearance will terrify her, so it would be best if John goes and talks to her. You share a similar appearance to Draken, and it would be best if John goes first. Issei looked at her and nodded, as he stayed from the sidelines, as he went inside. As soon as he went inside, Juniper Draken still remained silent, unable to move. Are you in there? John asked to Juniper Draken, who didn't seem to respond. Juniper Draken couldn't show herself as John spoke. "Mom, it's me John." Juniper Draken raised her head up a little bit as she could only give a glance. "Yes, Mom. I am John, your son. The same one that was born alongside Jade. Don't you remember me? Jay John." Juniper Draken looked up to see her son in the flesh. She couldn't see it before due to what Draken had done, but Nereid Kiri was starting to weaken the effects of trauma that was imprinted on her, but it was nowhere gone. It will never be gone. "Yes Mom, it is me. You remember on how we sided with you in the Civil War instead of choosing our treacherous father. You couldn't remember me before due to Draken's torture, but it really is me. I am John Arc.Not. Your John wasn't able to complete when he heard sniffling as she started to walk towards John. Tears were falling from her eyes. She couldn't even hug him due to the restraints as John walked towards her without any fear. He had to make her recollect who she once was. "It's alright." John hugged his mother as he spoke. "I may not be your John, but I am still John Arc, your son." Juniper Draken couldn't speak as she started to cry onto her son. She missed her son, she missed her children, she missed her family. She missed her friends, they all were slaughtered by Draken. She served Draken out of fear, she was emotionless. The reason she was serving Draken without a doubt was because of the armor that was completely turning her into a mindless soldier. It had some neurotoxins and chemicals that converted her movements and thoughts, which made her see anyone that Draken opposes as monsters and enemies of Arcadia, or to be more accurate, his enemies. Additionally, the neurotoxins contained some specific chemical which made her witness Draken murdering her family and mocking her while she tried to save them and failing, thus making her completely subservient to his commands. But this, he was able to make her serve relentlessly, do anything he asked her to do, and she did so without question. However, once the armor was removed, she was in control of herself. She no longer had any hallucinations, but her mind was so broken that she couldn't even sense what was going on. Until John snapped Juniper Draken out of her trance, but scars of her horrific torture and mental breakdown will still and will always remain. "It's alright Mom, you are safe." John rubbed his mother's back, even if she wasn't his mother by universes due to her losing her John. She was still the mother of John Arc, and she will always care and love her. Issei and Juniper watched the scene with a smile, as Juniper Draken took a glance towards Draken and backed away. "John, you said I was safe, right?" John took a glance towards her and realized what was happened as he spoke. "No Mom, that is not Draken, he is." No, please stay away from me." Juniper Draken fell back and crawled all the way back to her prison cell wall and stayed frozen. She was shivering and hyperventilating in fear and was crying due to terror. She feared the mere sight of Draken and she was afraid on what he might do to her. This was the scars of the horrific torture and mental breakdown that she had endured thanks to Draken torturing her for 2 months. I am sorry Draken P, please don't hurt me, please don't show those memories of my family dying, I promise. I won't be stupid P, please stay away P, please forgive me. I will be better I P, promise you. Issei could only look away and head outside as he rushed outside despite the pain as Juniper spoke. "Ice, wait." Juniper took a glance at her counterpart as she could see holding her head in pain and constantly crying out of fear. She was a broken shell of herself. She rushed towards Issei as John calmed her down, assuring her that everything would be fine. He could sense her hyperventilating and shivering due to the mere face of Draken. Scene change. Juniper found Issei, who had staggered due to the pain, as she caught him with her faster speeds and spoke. "Easy, your wounds aren't healed, too much strain can still harm you." Issei could only look her in the eye and nod. He was still affected by what his Draken counterpart had done to his own wife, something Juniper could sense and speak. "It is not your fault Ice.Yo, you are not to blame for what has happened. To her. But even then, you saw the look of her face, she fears my very expression. I don't want to see you be so terrified of me. She fears me that I will actually hurt her. I mean, I can't even imagine beating you up or torturing you. Like." Issei was devastated on what Draken had done to someone he loved, as Juniper could only hold him to calm him down. Seeing her counterpart's state did take a toll on her too, but the one responsible for this was his counterpart. She now realized what Draken's actions had done to him, even if Draken didn't torture or torment him. His actions were strong enough to leave a strong impact on him. He was clearly broken from what he had done to her counterpart and her children. And all because of a man who wanted more power and glory, that wanted him to be his loyal slave. This backfired big time as the man was dead, now replaced by an AI-generated voice that would bring nothing but despair to the Arcadians. "It's alright." Juniper calmed him down. It was like a mother was calming down a child as she spoke. "Don't beat yourself up for Draken's actions. You aren't to blame, it's alright Ice, you aren't and will never be like Draken. You shouldn't think of Draken right now, and what he did to his Juniper is unforgivable. But you aren't to blame for it. I know that you are not a monster like him, and he became a monster because he was broken beyond belief that turned him insane." Issei could only remain silent as he spoke. I guess you are right. Hey. Once this is over, we are taking a massive vacation off in one of the Earths. What do you say?" Issei looked at her and nodded as he spoke. Yeah, I would love that. Juniper gave a smile, as they stayed like this for a while as he spoke. Hey. Do you think that there is hope for this world? There has got to be. I mean, these people are fighting for a reason, they are fighting to bring back Arcadia, hopefully. Truth be told, even if the chances are bleak, even if the chances are low, or very low looking at the grim situation. It is not zero, yet, we have a way to defeat Draken. You taught me that, remember, you taught me to keep fighting no matter what happens. Even if Nicholas got the upper hand in some cases, you taught us to keep fighting till the very end. Juniper spoke while rubbing his head as Issei could only hum in agreement as she continued. When I lost my own powers and when we were surrounded, which was a trap set up by my former husband. He even tried to corrupt you and bring him to your side with a tempting offer, which I believe if I was in your place, I would have accepted it. I mean, he gave you an opportunity for revenge, something you rejected, well I presume Draken must have accepted without hesitation, knowing he had nothing to lose. That is one difference you and Draken have, you kept on fighting till the very end, well he gave up, not that we can blame him though. Issei nodded in agreement as he spoke. You are right, I just hope we can help this Juniper. But I doubt that can be, she is afraid of this face. Just looking at me can terrorize her. Juniper nodded in agreement, just one huge mistake costed her everything, but even she was angry at how much gullible she once was. She refused to become the same person ever again, no matter what may be. Hey guys. The one who called out was Willow of this world. As she spoke, I managed to make contact with your folks, they are online. Alright then, let's go. Issei spoke as Juniper nodded. The trio soon headed towards the viewing port where the others were there, waiting for them. Scene change. Viewing port, Shattered Kingdom base, 6:30 am. Issei, Juniper and Willow Draken were already in the viewing screen as the Arc siblings, Hades' family, Nyx and Mocha, as Jade spoke. Dad Mom, it is so good to see you again. Issei responded. You too Jade, you too. I believe Willow must have told you everything right. Yeah, and all my siblings are here and even our grandparents, mothers and aunts are here. Had it not been for this world's Willow, we would have never known where you were. Saffron spoke in response, to think we are all dead in this world, worse our killer was our father of this timeline, it is just, so unreal. Issei could only look down, as Saffron spoke, no, I didn't mean, sorry Dad, I know you wouldn't. And had it not been for Nicholas, I am pretty sure Draken wouldn't have even existed. It's alright Saffron, I can understand it. Saffron could only nod as Willow then spoke, either way, my counterpart of this world must find a way to send the two of you back along with the others, if we need to not get Draken's attention, we have to send the two of you back at the right time. Other me, do you still have the transporter that brought the 1-5 to this world? I do, although with Watt's death, it is hard to rebuild it, even with Hyoudou from 9905, we can't completely rebuild it. Willow Draken responded, to which Issei spoke, I can. I remember the schematics of the super collider that had been used by the Jade that brought me to a different dimension, I can try and see if I can rebuild it. Issei spoke as he added. If there is anything that I and Draken share, it is intelligence, I can see if I can rebuild or help with the recreation of the collider. Issei looked at Willow Draken as she nodded, very well, I shall lead you to the device, you can use the knowledge there. That seems like a fair plan. And added, to which she spoke sadly, still can't believe that our enemy is a version of a student that we couldn't even notice, and Nicholas turned him against us, tortured and broke him until he couldn't take it anymore. Worst, he ended up killing your entire family and my 3 children in retribution, before ultimately killing you too. And Willow added as even Willow Draken looked down in sadness, knowing that had things been different, Draken wouldn't even have existed. Not to mention those accursed faction leaders killed us in front of his eyes, I can't even imagine the mental torment our son went through. Hades spoke with anger, as he wished to torment Zeus and the factions for killing his counterpart and his entire family, along with Nyx and Mocha. He despised the faction leaders even more, as none could even speak, even Nyx and Mocha were livid at what the faction leaders they had done. As much as they hated to say it, they were glad for Draken for wiping out the faction leaders of this world. But he had to be stopped since he intends to break their Issei as well. Hades. You are son of that world. He is too broken, I don't even know if he can be fixed. He is too far gone. Draken has taken over our son, he has nothing to live for, nothing to be for. He realizes that his job is to bring in nothing but despair, that is what he can do. He thinks Issei was weak and he hates Issei more than anything. Persephone spoke while keeping her hand on her husband as he could only give a nod. There was a moment of silence between them. Anyways, what should we do? John of Issei's world asked, to which Issei responded, Bianca, alert Jean and ask her to prepare the army, we only have less than a day for him to show up. Violet, Rosemary, Olivia, Saffron, go and alert the Elder Arcs and ask them to mobilize their forces, and this includes the other kingdoms. Inform every kingdom to be prepared for an imminent invasion, since Draken and his generals will attack them at any time. Bianca, you do the same and ask Jean to inform the other Supreme Generals to mobilize their forces. Willow-sensei and Sensei, do the same as Jean is doing. The ones mentioned nodded in agreement as Willow spoke for everyone. You can count on it, we will try our best on this end. Mom, Dad, I want you to alert the Kingdom of Hell and Kingdom of Dragons, alert them and make sure they are ready for an invasion. You all only have less than a day to mobilize forces. Persephone and Hades nodded as Hades spoke. You got that one right, son, count on it. John, head to the 1-5 and ask them to prepare. There is a chance you will encounter Draken's Lily or anyone else from the 1-5 of this world that Draken has corrupted. Mocha, warn the 501st and Nyx, warn the Deathless, in case warning from the Four Sisters takes more time. The more awareness we spread of the invasion, the more faster we can prepare against Draken. Issei spoke, to which the four mentioned nodded in agreement as Nyx spoke for everyone. Not to worry, Issei, we will let the 501st know. Nyx spoke in response, to which someone spoke, Issei, listen. Issei turned his gaze around to see Holly Draken show up as she had spoken. Born the Madison family of your reality, cause my Scarlet would go to any lengths to hunt down the Ian and Alexi of this world, and even Milano and Scarlet. Holly Draken spoke, to which Issei, Juniper and Willow Draken realized what this meant as Issei spoke. Isaac spoke in response, leave that to me, Dad, other Holly, I won't let anything happen to this world's Madison family. Especially to my bestie. Thanks, Aqua. I really miss my Aqua. Aqua nodded in agreement to Holly Draken's words as Issei spoke, I will prepare the Super Collider. Issei was about to leave, but Persephone spoke. Ice, I would advise you to get some rest, your condition is pretty bad and I don't think you should overwork yourself like this. Persephone's words were responded to by Issei, Mom, I doubt I would ever get any sleep with the current situation that is going on. I can create a lullaby spell, with my Nereid Kiri, you should be able to get some rest. Juniper added as Issei wanted to refuse, but a glare from his mother made him think otherwise as Persephone spoke. Keep an eye on him, make sure that he gets proper sleep. Juniper nodded as she spoke, yes, Mom. I will. Take care, all of you, I want you two to be back in one piece. Hades spoke as Issei added, you can count on it, Dad. Willow Draken cuts off the transmission as she speaks, well. We should get going. Come Issei, I will sing you a lullaby. Juniper spoke with a mocking. Willow couldn't help but chuckle and snicker at this. Juniper had a small smile as Issei spoke with a groan. I am not a baby, Juniper. Juniper responded with a mocking tone, but you are my baby, my ice. Issei could only groan in embarrassment and annoyance as he would now have to sleep. At first he wasn't sure, but with Nereid Kiri, it was possible. Scene change. Time skip brought to you by Chibi. Issei for escaping, only for Chibi Juniper to have her spear ready behind her as she stands between near the escape door as Chibi Issei fears for his life. In Arcadia, Issei's world, a few miles outside of Arcadia, Outlands, 10:30 p.m. A huge dimensional portal opens up as suddenly a huge three-headed dragon shows up, which was golden scaled. This was Void Ghidorah, or Draken's world Void Ghidorah, as it roared into the location, scaring any beasts that were nearby. On top of him was Lord Draken, who had a sinister grin on his face. He managed to gain control of one of the strongest Hyoudos in the world. It is time, we begin our invasion, Draken declared as Void Ghidorah. He was stretching his wings out for all of Atlas to see as he roars. With him overlooking the fiery kingdom of Atlas, lightning and thunder erupt all around the kingdom. The Arcadians were on full guard as Jean spoke with horror and fear, he is here. Jean shook her head and got ready, this is a fight that they had to win. With Draken, soon enough the entire army as the generals appear beside him, including Carmilla, as all of them float or are on high perches or rocks in the Outlands. Draken soon begins his announcement as he uses a huge microphone to make an announcement across all of the kingdoms. People of Arcadia, I, Lord Draken, an embodiment of tyrannical authority, stand as a harbinger of bloodshed and retribution upon the realm of Arcadia. My presence heralds death and devastation, and now I shall assert dominion over this land. Henceforth, I shall govern the Arcadians with an unyielding grasp, unbound by the whims of the Arcs. No longer shall we allow the Arcs to dictate the fate of our people. It is time to demonstrate to the entirety of the universe that the Arcadians shall kneel before the rule of Lord Draken. Draken declared as all of the generals and other people beside him get ready for the invasion, with Draken continuing. As all the Arcadians get ready for battle. Let the invasion of Arcadia begin. The army started to march forward as Void Ghidorah flew into the air, ready to destroy the Arcadia of this universe and make Lord Draken the new ruler of this universe. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.